This conference will now be recorded.
I think Todd's delivery will probably make everything a lot clearer for many of you.
And to be said, I've got a subset of the information that we'll research here, but I've got a longer list. And if you'd like to see that in email and print it for yourselves or read it for yourselves, go ahead and put your name and email address on it too, and I can send them a package. But I wasn't going to give 50 pages to everybody and start their fires. Oh, there we go.
You want to pass that?
I just
Sure.
figured I would.
Okay.
But because it's a department head meeting, I'm going to talk about the good stuff first. Because we're worth so much more money, there's a possibility that our STAR school tax relief will be increasing. It's not a guaranteed yet, but the state has gone so far as indicating that it may happen. So you might get more of a STAR exemption if you have that, or you might get a bigger STAR check if you get that.
So the income level is not changing, it's the amount of rebate.
The amount of the benefit, yes.
I do notice I didn't use exemption.
Yes, thank you. New York State Department of Tax and Finance has issued North Elba a 100% level assessment and a 100% equalization rate. Those are final, so we don't have to pass any more tests this year.
Good job.
And taxable state-owned land turns out to be 104.94% of the New York State appraisals.
Wow.
So that's within their guidelines. Okay, homestead tax option clarification points. Yeah, I'm just reading this, but it'll cause me to make points or it'll cause someone to have a question or two. So the homestead tax option in New York State is not an exemption. It's a method to freeze inequitable proportions of tax payment in the case of a revaluation. It's a method of avoiding major tax shifts between homestead and non-homestead classes of properties when a reassessment occurs after many years of not reassessing. What I'm getting at there is if you ignore your roll for 10 or 20 years, one class of properties is going to be benefited relative to another class of properties because they change at different rates. Residential versus commercial versus forest lands, they change at different rates of value over time. And if you let that go for many, many years, there's a built-in inequity. The residential folks get used to paying less than their fair share, and the commercial people don't have many votes to stop the situation, and they get overtaxed, typically over time. Because North Elba conducts annual adjustments to stay at 100% of value, we don't have a great disparity. Commercial's paying what they ought to pay, residential's paying what they ought to pay, forest is paying what they ought to pay.
When you mean what they're paying what they ought to pay, that's based on a set of objective criteria.
They're supposed to be valued on the market value.
Okay.
And so if the market values of residential are at 80% and the values of commercial are at 90%, you got a gap there. They're all supposed to be paying relative to their actual market value.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we have an individual assessment on every parcel.
Okay.
And that individual assessment is our estimation of what it would sell for.
Okay.
But if you ignore, if you don't do a revaluation for lots of years, they start to become unequal in whatever way the market makes them unequal.
Mm-hmm.
Did I explain that right?
Yes, you do.
Yeah, I just wanted, when we say paid fair share, this was one of those, it's not a subjective sort of
It's not
situation. I know most
discretionary.
people, yeah, it's not discretionary. I just wanted to make sure that.
Yeah, so real property tax law 305 indicates that we're supposed to have all properties at an equivalent level of assessment. So they don't have to be at 100. They could all be at 75, but they've all got to be at 75. So even if you go for a lower equalization rate, they're still supposed to be even. Well, over time, on an ignored roll, that won't be even. So this option is to calm down the residential folks that know they're going to pay more if there's a real reassessment done. And this gives them time to transition to reality. That's really what it's all about. And I'll get to how they do that in a few minutes.
So say, just for, I'm sorry, I apologize, I'm not gonna stop between the
No
times.
problem.
Reality is the level of sale activity over the course of the year
And specifically the values per square foot and
okay.
things like that. You get down to a point where the assessments are not reflective of the market value at all.
Okay.
But when you got different classes of property that tend to move differently, one class is going to get pooched over the other, one way or another. And it's not always that residential goes up quicker, but it is the case in our situation, and most of the Adirondacks for that matter. Okay, so the homestead class of properties, okay, differentiating between homestead and non-homestead. The homestead class of properties includes all 1, 2, and 3 family homes. This includes parcels with multiple homes on them, long-term or short-term rentals, locals and non-locals, farms, vacant land of less than 10 acres, and residency is not required. So any attempt to discriminate between locals and non-locals,
Or residents and non-residents.
residents and non-residents, however you'd like to phrase that, between multiple homeowners, vacationers, any of the above. You don't have to live in the thing. So it's not homestead as you'd understand from California or Florida's laws.
Right.
And then non-homestead is everything else. And ultimately in North Elba, that's commercial and forest properties. We don't have much industry and things like that.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask what other classes would be in there, like if you're looking at like a bigger location, like what, like industrial.
Like if you're a Ticonderoga, you'd have industrial class of, paper mill and whatnot.
So industrial, commercial, and forest properties are the primary non-homestead classes.
Correct.
Historical.
Doesn't matter as long as it's classified. We don't have a tax category for historical.
Right.
So, any of the above. And that includes a residential property, technically speaking, is a $3 million waterfront parcel that clearly no one lives in in winter. It's still residential.
Yep.
And it would be in the homestead class.
And you're saying if we, let's say we were going to adopt a homestead tax option, we couldn't have language in differentiating between, like qualifying how many, if you live here, X number, half a year plus one.
No. You could have a person that owns 4 different properties in this town, all in homestead.
Every single one of them qualifies.
They can't live in all 4 of them, but they're all homestead. Now, I can understand how it got to that because, yeah, there's families living in the 3-family homes, so it's homestead, sure. But it doesn't single out owners, it singles out usages. Okay, so the mechanics of this business. Before you go to homestead, you've got a roll prior to that. So the roll prior to any homestead activities, if you were to do it, would be the 2023 roll, which, as I just mentioned, got certified at 100% of value, all classes. So in roll year 2023, we'd have 77% of all the parcels in town in homestead and 23% in non-homestead. And like I said, those are basically commercial properties and some forest properties. Then you conduct a reassessment that qualifies for reimbursement for state aid, which essentially means you jump through all the hoops and looked at all the properties, value them, methodology that the state approves to get to 100%. Well, we were just at 100% this year. If it gets 100% next year, isn't going to be a huge lift. However, we still have an increase in the residential properties, as you might be aware from the listings and the sales, but it's not so huge that we need some remedy to step it in over 5 years. So The 77% homestead and the 23% non-homestead would be the base proportion. So the value in homestead pays 77% of the taxes, and the value in non-homestead pays 23% of the taxes. That's the base proportion. And then there will be a gap between the proportion of the tax levy that homestead class properties paid in the prior year, so this being the prior year, the proportion of the homestead classes would pay after the reassessment. So there's going to be some difference next year. But do we need a stepwise way of achieving that? So that gap between the base proportion of 2023 and the base percentage of 2024, whatever that may be, that gap will be reduced over the subsequent 5 years by whatever of these rates, 25, 50, or 75% of the gap per year. So you got a gap, you can pay 25% per year getting towards the actual proportions that are out there, the actual percentage of value that's supposed to be paid. I just don't think we need a scheme to get there, because there's going to be a new 2025 reassessment also. So this is a complication. It doesn't really solve any of the problems that we perceive.
But to say you're always playing catch up. If you spread it out over 5 years, then after that 5 years, now you reenact another 5 year, and you're never really catching up.
So you're just chasing your tail for no real good outcome that I can foresee.
And that actual cost doesn't disappear,
No, the bill still gets paid by commercial forest,
right?
more than,
It's anywhere you save on one class, but the actual cost gets passed on. It's not lost.
yeah, the tax levies are still the tax levies. The town gets what they needed, the school gets what they needed, the village gets what they needed, et cetera.
So,
It's just how much you're extracting from each class of property.
Right.
and maybe you get into this a little bit later, but it would place so the burden would shift disproportionately to non-homestead.
Another way I was looking at it is it would remain where it's at if there was some perceived inequity. And we would gradually shift towards not being inequitable, towards being equitable, which is paying their fair share relative to their value. So I went on to editorialize here at the bottom why the homestead option is not ideal in North Elba. Once again, it was created to induce municipalities to do a reassessment for many years of neglected values. The option is designed to blunt the effect of major shift in taxes between classes of property. North Elba is at 100% of market value and equitably assessed. So there's no long-standing preference for one class over another. By maintaining a 100% level of assessment annually, we already avoid major multi-year shifts.
So we're unique in the sense that we do it annually, whereas other municipalities, other towns do it maybe every 3 years to 5 years.
But you're gonna need a good 10 years of ignoring the roll plus to get into the case where this would help you. If you perceive this as helpful, you know, it's really just saying, oh, commercial, you just wait. We're gonna keep you overtaxed for a little while now. I'm sure you're not real happy about that.
Right.
But the residential class can vote. Commercial can't really vote. So the next page I have here is homestead class versus non-homestead. It just goes on to say, pretty much every parcel you could live in outside of commercial properties. Apartments don't become commercial until it's 4 or more units. I don't know if I need to
You don't need to read it.
beat that to death.
Let's just say, and this is hypothetical, and if short-term rentals were viewed as a business via New York State, then they would be under the commercial class, so to speak.
That's a theoretical, and that strikes me as yes, that would be the case.
Okay, so,
That's what I think would happen, but
but that's a New York State situation, but within the confines of what, yes.
yeah, you've seen how New York State rates laws.
You don't want to assume anything, right?
Yeah, I don't really-
Yeah.
maybe not a lot of deliberation.
To me, the easier answer, I won't sidetrack.
Yeah, sorry.
Feel free.
I wasn't saying Jason was sidetracking, I just had some more background.
No.
I had a better answer for the next state.
I think it was important in the sense that like to highlight the multiple homeowner, who are the business with short-term rentals, that if we were to somehow were able to implement this, which is, I think is the double-digit sort of increases are pressing people, but highlight that this people, the short-term rentals and other business would be benefiting exponentially, along with maybe not as much as like, they'd be benefiting more than say your local resident.
It would kind of be your best guess, because tell them what commercial went up in your last 6%.
Commercial went up
So if
6%.
all STRs were to change and go commercial, even though sales tax would be committed, does that help or hinder us?
Well, here's part of the problem. Because if you reclassify something being used as a short-term rental, it goes into the commercial class. And then I would have to measure the commercial class differently.
Exactly.
And so they'd have a higher trend than just the 6%,
Right.
most likely.
And it would be compared to them to a retail store on Main Street, which is maybe not the most fair comparison. So my quick answer is that they need their own class, that's all I'm saying.
Right.
And here's the rub for me right now. I've got two nearly identical single-family homes sitting next to each other. One's a short-term rental, one's got a family living in it. When it goes on the market, a buyer's gonna buy either one of those. They don't care what you did in it last week. They care about what they're gonna do in it in the future. And so they're worth the same. And so if it appears like the one that's doing short-term rentals is worth a lot more because of the income, that makes a single family worth more too, because that person could sell and reap the benefits of that valuation method.
Right.
Or vice versa, if you couldn't have a short-term rental.
Either way, that's right.
Like, I'm just saying, you have I know you've heard that argument a lot, right? Like, that is not the value of my home anymore because it can no longer be a short-term rental if it's sold. So that theory applies in the reverse.
Yeah, and so.
Once you see it.
So areas that are affected by the new short-term rental laws may have a perceived value that changes
Yes,
over time.
but we haven't seen it yet.
We have to prove it with numbers. This is the summer where the numbers should be coming in, but I haven't seen a downward trend. I'll say that.
Right.
So, sorry.
No, not a problem.
Everyone's
No,
joining
this
in
is-
on the
this is-
side.
This is a reality.
Questions are more interesting.
There's one house on the market here, right in front of it or in back of it
Or to the side of it.
is for sale. One can no longer be used for short-term rental. So it goes from $850 to $499 for listing price.
But that,
Whereas the other one is on the Main Street corridor, so it can be a short-term rental on sale.
exactly. So my neighborhoods need to reflect what is permissible.
Right.
And that's going to come to bear in this coming year,
Okay.
But Rick, I would
I
say that
believe.
that doesn't even, like, that's not necessarily about any, like, short-term rentals, it's about anything.
Oh,
Like,
sure.
You could have, like,
Exactly.
I mean, the perfect example, Sentinel Road is one block back here on Folsom. No, Hurley, whatever that is.
Whatever.
Or Ken's. So it's amazing.
Both of those.
Yeah,
Okay.
so you've all, like, since 2011 and probably before, but I'm only familiar with code from 2011 on, that's always been the case. Like, those front houses, you could tear down and build hotels or restaurants or gas stations or anything, but your neighbor to the back is town residential and can only have a 1 or 2 family, single family.
So it should balance.
No, I wasn't saying it should balance, I was just saying that has to do with zoning. And like, as a community in 2011, we said we want this corridor to be a gateway corridor and allow for commercial businesses. What happened in the market is people said, well, the market is short-term rental, that's like what the open market, yeah, that's what the open market turned it into.
Yep.
Okay, enough sidetracking.
So yes, I have to make my neighborhoods reflect the permissibility of short-term rentals from this point moving forward. So that's my own little task for myself, is to differentiate those.
But you might not see
and
it.
measure the difference.
Yeah.
And there might not be one.
Well, depending upon the sales or whatever, like you said, you may not see it.
Right.
Not be reflected.
With that being said, have you covered the major points that you'd like to in this homestead?
I got a pretty graph.
Oh,
There's more, it's like
Yeah.
7 more pages.
Yeah, I just didn't know if
All
he
right.
wants to get into all of
I'm a
it.
graph guy. I went right to the
There's a few pages.
But before the graph, this volume 7 Payments Council, number 101, which I referred to when I was chatting with these guys, the state finally said something clear. There is no general provision of law which grants exemptions from taxation to homesteads. However, approved assessing units may select a homestead-based proportion in order to preserve the homestead class tax share after evaluation, i.e. keep overtaxing the businesses.
Okay.
What that comes down to.
Sure.
Editorializing that. So the pie graph shows that 23% in its current role is non-homestead, 7%.
I'm sorry, I thought you said backwards, go ahead. I was looking at the bigger pie.
Non-homestead orange, 23%. And the majority of the taxes are being paid by the 77% homestead group. That's what we'd have for a base proportion if we went forward with homestead next year. So to explain that catch-up thing, on the left is current reality, 77% homestead, 23% non. Move to 2024 and let's just say residential keeps going crazy. Now it's 90% of the value and only 10% of the value is in non-homestead. That 13% gap is what we'd be talking about. So we shave off 25% a year for 5 years. Big catch up at the end, because it used to be, it could take forever. It just catches up asymptotically at 0. In 1981, they changed it to a 5-year box.
Okay.
But you as a board could choose to whittle away at it at 25, 50, or 75% per year for that 5-year period. I don't see it doing you any good.
Right.
So, I try to be concise. There's a bunch more stuff to read if you feel like it.
So if we're looking to do something in order to kind of offer some sort of, this isn't,
That's not your tool.
what's that?
That's not your tool.
So the board would need to look
And legislation. I
at
don't,
legislation.
if I knew of legislation that would help you do what I perceive you trying to do, I'd bet you.
Okay.
Yeah, in other words, what you're saying is, you just said it, but there's nothing else out
Now, if you were a city,
there. Yeah, okay.
you have different tax rates for commercial and non-commercial. You're not going to become a city. I haven't had one since like 1935 or something.
And the state legislator's not keen on.
Yeah, because I read something a few years ago where an area, municipality or whatever, was considering being a city. And they.
I can imagine who that might be.
Yeah, they, maybe 20 years ago, 15, 20 years ago. And they did all their homework and everything and said,
No, your school district has to be coterminous with your city and all kinds of silliness.
Yeah.
It'll take
I mean,
years.
there were some, like I said, some blazing advantages to it. That were here.
Perhaps.
Perhaps that were here.
But
But it
mandated
was
to
all
have your own
disadvantage.
police force, and there's a lot of stuff involved with
Yeah,
it.
I remember that.
Instead of some of the tax going to sort of the county, we would come to,
You get to keep it all.
yes, that would be the benefit.
That was one of the benefits. It wasn't in Essex County.
Can I?
Questions?
Thank you so much for doing this, and thank you, Todd, for doing all the research. I found a little bit of differences, and I just want to say that maybe they can be addressed at a later date or whatever. Okay, so one of the things on the homestead tax option from the Real Property Tax Services on New York State's page, publication 1023, page 2, for what qualifies a residential class, it says 1, 2, and 3 family residential units, farmhouses, mobile homes that are owner occupied. So to me, that means, no, it can't be that's how I interpret it. Maybe I'm not my.
I hear you.
Then there's I know Google's not the best thing, but there's a law firm, the legal law firm in New York State. When it says what is a homestead, they say basically it's your home that you physically occupy as a principal residence. A vacation or weekend home will not qualify. A homestead can be one of the following: a house, shares in co-ops, units in condo, or a mobile home. And that's on the LANGEL firm, and that's a New York firm. The other thing I feel that we really need to concentrate on or look at is that the residents need a bone thrown. And I don't think that, in so many words, as my father would say, we're SOL, which it sounded like we kind of just said. I feel that you're talking about this gap, I've got to assume with all the new builds that there's more income. I know budgets are going up, but there's more income coming in from all these builds. So for instance, if there's 100 homes and 77% are charged one thing and 13% are charged another, whatever it is, then if you all of a sudden have 150 homes, you're getting 50%, 50 more homes are paying into that tax base. So it's got to be increased. So it can't be where there's a gap in between and one isn't, you're pulling out of one mouth to feed the other. You've got to be getting more income from all the new builds. And I understand the taxes need to go up and prices go up. I get all that. But those are things that I would just want the board to really reconsider and to really look at. And I feel bad that Todd has to do this.
But you're talking about like the mill rate going down, correct? So like the more you add to the assessed value, the lower the tax rate.
Right, if somebody has a homestead exemption.
No, I'm not talking about the homestead exemption. Like in general, how much did we gain in assessed value this year, roughly?
About $464 million.
Yeah, and so because we added that to our tax base, the rate of which your tax goes down per 100,000, the mill rate goes down.
Supposedly, yes.
But
But that's not supposedly.
But it does, but people aren't, okay, I know it does, but
But you said supposedly.
residentials aren't seeing that. Taxes aren't necessarily going down.
I never said taxes are going down, I'm saying the mill rate is going down.
Okay, so the mill rate's going down, okay.
And so, go ahead, Seth.
I'm just trying to point out that the 150 new homes that you
Right,
pick
the
up
example, yeah.
should be taxed, but in the homestead provision, they would not. The commercials would be paying for what they ought to be paying,
Why if they're assessed?
because you just locked it in with homestead. So that base proportion gets locked in. And you're stuck with it for 5 years.
But those, I might be misunderstanding, but wouldn't those 50 more houses be assessed and those, what they have to pay for are coming in, right? Those taxes are coming in.
Right, but they're in the homestead class. Which
Right,
means
but
homestead ought to be paying more, but they're not gonna pay more because the homestead option was taken.
But if, say the homestead class, say the assessed is 75%, you're still getting 50 homes paying 75% more than you were getting before. Because there's 50 new homes.
Right. But if you take this option, it's all locked in, and they're gonna pay 77% of the taxes when they ought to be paying 80 cents, let's say.
Okay,
So
yeah.
it's a way of freezing in. It's my perception of the way it goes. And the homestead definition, I believe you're talking about common law there, not the real property tax law definition of homestead as per the homestead option. So just be careful of that, because you can go down some paths that lead towards multiple New York State definitions of homestead.
Yeah, it's under the real property tax law, Article 19, is the way I'm reading it. But I've got to feel that there's something that can be done for year-round residents. If this is, listen, I looked, I know, I can't find much, but this was the best thing I could find. And I think that there's ways, in talking to Dan's tax office, there's ways for us as a town to implement something to help.
So what was Dan's next recommendation?
Your town has to issue something.
Yeah, but we don't have any power. We're not, there's no.
They acted like we do.
That's because it's back on them.
But that's what you both do with each other. You both do that with each other.
We do not
elected
say
you-
New York State property is a real property law. We just
But
don't.
we've elected you to push.
I 100% agree with that, and Jason
So
and I,
push,
we've
push,
had this
please, just push.
conversation.
But maybe
can't change
this,
New York State real property law.
But are you saying, but we can start vocalizing?
you can start vocalizing it and you can start asking for those options. And maybe we're the town that has to do it first.
Ask first?
That
I've
has
asked.
to do something first. Maybe there's not that in the law, but we've got to find that. We've got to put it in. We've got to ask New York State, we got to say, maybe no other town in New York State does this, but like Plaza is a tourist town, we made 25 million out of the Ironman. Let's give the people who are working these things some sort of break, something. It's up to us to do it. And if we have to be the first ones, we have to do it. It's not being combative, it's asking for help. And I think New York State, they obviously have given us a lot of money, so they think we're valid in what we're doing. Let's keep the workers here. Give us something. Or maybe New York State, you write us down this homestead stuff. What is wavering? What can be changed? And really lay it down for us, and maybe we can figure it out somehow.
So I've got a question. You listed the things where this is not a good recommendation. Is there anything in it that is a good part for the community?
What is your goal? I need to start with that.
My personal
What I'm
or-
listening to, what I think the goal is you'd like primary residencies to have an exemption of some form. That's the way I would phrase it.
Help, to have help with their
Primary
taxes.
residencies. Homestead, because it's already been used for this option, is kind of tainted at this point. I use primary residency because the basis of the STAR exemption, the basis of the veterans exemptions, all the exemptions, primary residency. I'd start with that verbiage.
Yeah.
And
That makes sense.
this is the weeds. You're getting off into the weeds, in my opinion.
Yeah, and that's what we're looking for.
So be clear
Right, how-
what you're
yeah.
asking for.
Okay,
Primary residency. Because we have a way of verifying that. Where's your mail going? What's your driver's
Yeah.
license say?
yeah,
Not that hard,
so that's great. Let's ask
but you've got to ask
First-
for a lot.
for a law for primary residences to have some sort of help exemption wise with their taxes.
That's the
Who
way.
could help draft that for us?
Don't look.
Well, really, as a representative, but it's New York State law, but it doesn't mean that we can't advocate on behalf of, your behalf, but we don't write New York State
No,
law.
but you already hope so.
So-
Right, we'll have a law.
Put something,
Oh,
put something
But we can't,
intelligent.
some of them can't supersede New York State law.
But I would put something intelligent.
How do you have attorneys? That's called home rule. You have attorneys work for the town.
Yeah, we have town laws. I know they don't
It's
supersede,
doable.
but we have
It's
town
doable.
laws that we could certainly request. And I know they don't supersede New York State, but listen, Steck's office barely knew about the homestead when I talked to them.
Well, clearly they didn't because they put it back on us, and it's not a good option. I have no problem calling.
But we have to be able to go to you to help.
Yeah, I'm glad that we're here,
Yeah.
but I think that you think that there's an option that the town has, when I trust Todd that if there was an option, he would have told me. Todd and I just.
Yeah, I don't,
I just
this is
said
a
with all
little
these
over, I
board
didn't give
members
it
a
to
lot.
you.
And it's not that I think, it's that I'm requesting, I'm asking. I don't presume anything, especially here in Lake Placid. I do think that we can try to do something, and I think, and I would hope, you feel like you would be my source to begin to try.
So I think that's what I was trying to say. It was that, and I apologize that I gave the impression, because the conversations did kind of almost would lead people to infer that like, this is a dead end option. I just,
No, we
One-
were just
one aspect-
clarifying
one,
what was coming
you know,
back.
one aspect would be to, advocate whether we create a resolution to, ask formally ask our representatives to, move forward specifically. But that's what I was kind of hoping the conversation isn't over, that as the town board would continue to kind of, because there are, what Todd is saying also is that like, there isn't really been any leveling off around here, so we might be facing something similar, not to the extreme, the next year or so, on top of last year. So we're kind of going through this phase, and maybe we could find something. It doesn't seem to be, shouldn't be easy.
Yeah,
But
I mean, right?
like we can ask, formally ask, instead of informally ask by making phone calls.
But you guys are also taxpayers, like DanSec is like, DanSec will, I mean, you have equal right and equal hearing to DanSec than I do. I'm also happy to have that conversation, but you are also DanSec and Billy Jones's.
It is, but it's not my job. I'm not hired to talk to their office and do that. I vote them in, but I rely on people I voted in my town.
But more voices.
They
I'm just saying
have a
that-
much bigger voice.
I think,
I
well,
call DanSec up and they're like, okay, Joe Smith, who are you? Like, they don't care.
I think.
Yeah, but they don't care who I'm just saying we all have equal voices.
They better hear you.
Yeah.
Well, I see what you're saying. There is a stamp of legislator or
Yeah, actually,
elected
that's
officials
the
doing it. We do it, but
Mhm.
also I think what Rick was saying is that just we can, but I think it would increase the probability. I don't know to the extent that it would be reach a threshold where it would be likely, but if in mass people
That's
dictate it.
exactly right. Like, we would stand behind you,
Okay.
but we can't stand in front because we are not the elected members of our town. But we can certainly stand behind, we can write, we can petition, we can do all sorts of stuff, but we need to have the in.
So I know Emily has informally has asked, so she's been like months ago, has asked us. So, and she hasn't broadcast, but she does get on the phone and explore it, so maybe in a more sort of public sort of way that we can formally request.
Yeah.
And then with the support of those, because I think it is kind of a big deal, and everyone, you walk around, you do see what's going on, you look at your neighborhoods, and you see.
Yeah, I think it's a big deal, and I think as the elected officials, like I said, to throw a bone, just something. And then you can say, look, you guys, we worked so hard for you to do this, and we got it. Yay, let's celebrate, like just something.
Diane, just think about the parameters on how you would even start, because just being a local resident wouldn't even get off the starting blocks. In other words, in your mind, do you see a 10% reduction in your taxes as beneficial? And does it stop when a person earns $80,000? Does it stop when the value of your home exceeds $400,000? There are parameters that a law like this would have to define. That gets into really, I don't want to suggest discriminatory, because I understand the plight you're looking for. But to set those parameters is really challenging.
But it's the same as the elderly, if they have an exemption and if they make a certain amount, they don't get that exemption.
Well, and that's why those exemptions are recognized by the state, because they're easy to track and justify. And
So with this, we could ask that this be also.
But Diane, and you keep saying like, we would do this, and then you would say, look what we did for you. You guys are to be statewide. Like, we can't, and not to say that we can't still be the ones asking, but like, this isn't a little change that we asked the state legislature to do that just changes North Elba. I mean, in New York State property tax law is New York State property tax law. So you have to, it's all a negotiation, but if Billy Jones believes in it, he's got to get the downstate senators and the assemblymen to buy into it, to co-sponsor a bill.
Is that actually true? I mean, there's no local law?
There's no local law.
Nothing you can do on the local level?
we can't take taxes from you without a state law to back the reasoning why we can do that.
And we can't charge
But
different
like
rates.
what you're saying, can't we do that? Like we go to, like what you're
I
saying.
mean, make
But
up
I just want you to see
Yeah.
how big it is. Like,
I understand how
Yeah.
big it is, but I think it has to start somewhere.
The conversation, so
But believe me, my conversations that I've had with certain elected officials, they say, yeah, this comes up every year. Yeah, this comes up every year. And I'm saying, well, but it's getting more important.
Yep.
but you're not elected officials, you're not.
And I'm my dad's daughter, so it might come up every year, and I'm gonna be there every year, and I'm gonna be tapping you on the back going, how we doing on that? How we doing on that? So much that you're gonna wanna go, let's just do it to get her off my butt.
I
No,
have
no,
the
but we've
exposure
already
to do
done
that
it.
on the county level. And quite often, Dan Steck and Billy Jones come to address us. So I can promise everyone here, any opportunity I get, I will bring it up to see where it's at. It takes a mind greater than mine, believe it or not.
So then
We're all shocked by that.
Because I don't think
Why
it's
is,
like-
why is he thinking it back to you?
I don't think Jim understood what homestead
No, why is he thinking it
I don't.
back down? If it starts with him, start it with him then.
And so I think what I'm hearing is that you want us some more than just instead of like making a phone call, we
Yeah,
have to make it very public, sort of, we want to formally request, at least to
Exactly.
start the conversation.
Yes.
And there's
The
nothing.
heavy lifting or whatever, you're well aware of how New York State operates, so it's.
Are you talking a constitutional amendment where it's gotta pass two legislations and go to
Oh, my
referendum?
God. Even-
Is that what
Yeah,
could be?
yes.
It's not unlike the first responders exemption,
Mhm.
the military exemption, all of those took years and years and years to evolve. And once
For a
they,
state referendum?
right,
Yeah.
and once they're there, now the individual townships can
Can
adopt
Opt in.
Right.
So no,
So let's start something to get it
Yeah.
to the,
If it's not for us.
that's a,
then for our
that's a
kids,
minimum of a
you know?
3-year process. If it started today, which it's not starting today.
yeah, but 3 year would be optimistic, it's just, it's that, I think
That's
maybe,
unrealistic.
I mean, I don't want to put any words into your mouth. You are just cautioning those that any sort of relief or solution, it won't be immediate.
And it won't
And
be
then-
locally based.
It won't be local.
Now,
But we can
how
start.
has like Newcomb done it?
Right.
Well, Todd can answer that.
Yeah, and I know it's a little different for the town, right?
They used it better than anybody I've ever seen. And traditionally, all you had was state-owned land, Finch Prime, forest lands, and a little bit of residential, which mostly consisted of camps. So they did a reassessment after many, many years, adopted homestead. The commercial sector and the forest sector were paying almost all the bills. And very little is being paid by the residentials. And they did it before 1981, so they had infinity to catch up. And so they pay a little bit of that gap every year, asymptotically approaching zero difference. They'll never get there. And so they locked in commercial overpaying, residential underpaying for decades. We don't have this situation because I've got an equitable role. Sorry.
600 residents. That's a population.
And so they locked in that equity for many decades, several decades.
Good for them.
And they played it. And we are not in the situation to have anything to play on.
Right. Well, we want something done.
Well, as far as I can see it, you can't do a local law. Local laws have to be approved by the state. They see the unconstitutionality of it somewhere in it, and it would not get approved anyhow. If it did, we'd be in court for the next 10 years with a local law. So it needs to be a state. So,
Well, I think we hear you loud and clear, and I think our next steps are to reach out to our state representatives to see, because we can't be the only community too, right? Like, I'm sure there's a ton of local people in the Catskills that are hearing the same thing, and their residents are asking for the same
talk to
thing.
Lake George, they
Or
were
Lake George.
24%.
So yes, I would love that.
Yeah.
But I still have those questions about ours
Well, after you
and
get the
and what
material,
how they're qualifying what a resident.
after you get the materials that I'm sending you, the extended packet, you'll see how they are not real congruous and how they explain homestead. But one where it's your primary residency that you're quoting is in the minority. Several of the documents put it as everything residential, whether or not you have residency. So I'm not gonna make excuses for the lack of clarity in state laws
Right.
and the opinions of council.
Because that could be more, I get what you're saying, but I understand. But more immediate,
What I would
could
do-
be, oh,
What I would do is expunge your vocabulary of the homestead stuff. And so you're looking for a primary residence exemption.
but yeah, I have that because of what I've read for homestead. That's why, and it's right out of New York State, you know,
Just
saying,
begs confusion.
yeah. But if this is true, I'm not saying yours isn't, but they're both on New York State stuff.
That's the problem.
If this is true, then, and it's more immediate, maybe not huge to make this big gap.
But you still got this program, which isn't gonna get you anything because we're already at 100%,
We're already at
100%, 100%.
There's
for all the
nowhere to
classes.
move.
If you're at 75% for residential,
Well, it would take me 5 to 15 years of sitting on my hands doing nothing to let it happen.
We're already here.
Now, if you want me to sit around.
no, well, we were for years before you got here, actually.
Yes.
All right, well,
With that being said, I need to move this meeting along. If there's any other questions?
So the word is primary residence exemption
Yeah.
versus homestead.
Or something akin to that. but I-
So stop thinking homestead and
and
thinking
primary residence would have to be
In Latin.
defined.
Great.
We appreciate
Oh,
everyone.
thank you, guys.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good job.
Enough? I have nothing more to report. Okay. Probably get more progress.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Todd.
Mike?
Follow that show.
Yeah. Really want me to?
Can you make your presentation a little bit shorter?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You gotta let them talk, I know.
Okay.
The only thing I'm here to remind everybody, and it's already in the works, we want to get that software package to the permitting, building permitting system approved. And I know it's with the lawyers now, reviewing the contract, and hopefully you have an answer before your next meeting on the 5th. So we can get that approved and get going. They gave us a break on the price, and they're willing to help implement the software before even asking for money or getting any payments. So hopefully we can get up and running as soon as possible.
Just to re-clarify, it does not include
There's
STRs.
nothing to
It
do.
is our building
It's strictly
permits.
building. Right now, we got a building permit program that is 15 years old. There's no updates, there's no customer service.
It's not web-based,
It's
it's
not
program
web-based.
run.
I mean, it's basically run off Bridge computer.
Sure.
We all tie into it. There's no real great database to keep all the records together. And we can integrate this new program with a lot of other aspects with zoning and planning and so forth. So it's a win-win, even though it costs a few more dollars, but it's.
Nope. I think a month ago, we don't
Yeah.
were behind it.
Yeah, no, I know, and I realize it just takes time, but
Yeah.
that's, unless you got questions about the neighborhood, I mean, there's a lot going on. A lot of conversations with a lot of different people about projects and things they want to do, and we'll see what happens. When they put the money up and they start doing stuff, we'll see how it goes.
I feel like I ask this every month, how close is Cambia?
They're still talking September, they're coming right along.
Yeah, I got an email the other day saying, I don't know why I got it, it said fall, early fall,
Yeah.
excuse me, early fall.
This is the same one that should be going from, what is it, 7 to 7, or are we going outside of?
Depends what day you're talking about.
Yeah, really.
Depends who woke up or not.
Yeah, yeah.
You guys are just.
And whether somebody's around, yeah.
Yeah, we're not gonna go there.
Nope.
And then the other one was the rooftop bar on,
They got their final yesterday, they're operating on the old Marcy, yeah. Beautiful, beautiful up there.
They opened, what, 2 weeks ago?
They had a wedding, yeah, 'cause like everybody else, they did shit without.
Yeah.
Or Emily.
Yeah. All of you.
Cover your ears.
Anybody that's listening. Anyway, yes, so we gave it temporary, and the only thing they were missing was some soffit lights and an exit sign. So it wasn't dangerous.
The lights are facing down.
Everything's down, yeah, don't worry. Anybody's annoyed with the lights, tell them. But yeah, it's beautiful. It's open in the afternoons. If the door, where the elevator shaft is, if that door is open, like pried open, that means you can go in and get in the elevator, well, have a drink. Otherwise, if it's closed, so that elevator they use is a service elevator for most of the day, and they don't want people coming and going. There's not even a card access, like if you're staying there, you can't go in there at all unless they have it. So if that door is open,
Go
you
for
can
it.
go up and enjoy the view and the
How long do you
sunset.
think it'll take you to realize that this new program works for what you need? Or you know it already?
A couple of weeks, Britt's convinced it'll be the best thing since sliced bread, so
And Mike, you've talked a couple times about that project at the old miniature golf. Is that dead or?
They submitted not complete application to the review board, and we never heard from them.
That's what I thought, yeah.
Oh, wait, I do have a question for you. I keep getting text messages from people about when is the public hearing for the planned development district for Lake
You don't
Casa
know, you're
Marina
gonna-
Court?
You're gonna be there, it's the 19th next month,
How would I know?
because you told everybody,
I think we wrote it down. July 19th.
July 19th, 5:30. So a regular board meeting, you guys have to come to
5:30.
avoid having two other.
Did anyone
public
else know that?
No,
I think
you and I were talking about it the other day.
hearings. I thought David said,
Yeah,
no,
it'd be fun.
it's gonna be going in the paper, so yeah, you know.
When is it?
I'm glad I looked at Deanna.
The 19th,
Okay.
Wednesday, the 19th at 5:30.
Who's regular board meeting? Oh, review board.
Review board, yeah, so it's a review board meeting, and so the process for PD is the review board has to listen, hear, and hold a public hearing, and then make a recommendation to you and the village board, whether to pass it or not.
Okay.
So what will happen that night, it'll be the review board's meeting, the public will be invited in to make comments, there's no discussions, just let the people talk. You got 2 minutes, move on, and then the review board that night could decide they could vote on yes or no. Tim Smith will write up the actual recommendation, which you will get the next day or, so before your next August meeting, and you guys can then decide whether you want to give them the PD or not.
So we'll be there to actually hear the discussion.
You'll hear the
public
public
comment.
comment, so you don't have to have another public hearing.
Yeah.
Because this is a change of the local zoning law.
I would suggest that David maybe tell the village and town boards that there's.
They all know, I mean, well,
No, they don't.
Anita knows, Dodie knows, that's all I need to do.
Am I crazy?
What is it? It's the 19th?
The 19th, 5:30, right here.
No, you and I were talking about this 3 days ago.
No, Darcy wants to have it upstairs, but it's up to, I don't know, that may change either, but it's in this building, obviously. So
Okay.
just follow the crowd.
Darcy, if you're on this call, can you ask David to do action step?
I thought he sent something, I don't know.
He probably sent something to the review board, but I think you're
No,
about
he
10
sent-
of the people that need to be there.
I thought he told, like I said, he asked Anita, told Anita told her board, and I don't know. I told Dodie. And he didn't tell you.
I'm gonna write, call Emma.
Yeah, so anyway, the 19th. Anything
Glad
else?
I-
Yes.
Like everyone in Elba.
All good.
That's it?
Thanks.
See ya.
Oh, wait, sorry, 5:30.
Yes, ma'am.
Yep.
Okay.
Next.
All right.
I'm gonna be bored on you guys. I saw a lot of digging out there.
You did? Where is that?
The Ladra.
Funny, the residents haven't noticed. But anyway, yes, the Ladro, that was on that. I know there was discussion or wishful thinking that it was gonna be paved prior to Iron Man. That's probably not gonna happen, which I'm sure we don't care. Tentative paving schedule is gonna be the week of July 17th. And hopefully that we get it all paved that week, with all the milling and prep work will be done the week prior, the week of the 10th. Lodge Road is gonna be last on the list. We're working from one end of town, moving the equipment that way. Lodge Road will be last.
I'm sure they'll be pretty busy up there during the summertime.
It's gonna suck out there to be blunt. Yeah, it's gonna be miserable couple days working down there with the amount of traffic that the Lodge Road gets in the summer. It's just a busy road.
Do you have a
Flaggers
picture for
lined
the-
up.
Yeah, well, with all the material being delivered, our crew can be on the ground.
Yeah.
That's where that goes. So,
So you did line up the trailer.
oh yeah, that's gonna happen. I hope it's.
Yeah.
I think you said this, are they hauling 100%?
Yes,
Okay.
for the Lodge Road.
For the Lodge,
Yes,
yeah,
yes,
that's what I mean, for the
we'll
Lodge
take
Road.
care of all the other little roads.
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, it's almost 3,000 tons of material. Our truck's 150 trips back and forth
Yeah.
to the quarries. It doesn't make any sense
No.
to beat our trucks to death. And like I say, it gives our guys on the ground, and we want them traffic control on a state
Right.
road and before and after the paver as well. So
Do you have an approximate date for the launch road?
I'm gonna call it the 21st, 22nd.
Okay, so it is before.
In a
If
perfect
all the-
world, if like, if we get,
If all the dominoes fall.
and we get 5 days of paving in, it would probably be done that Friday. What I advised, whatever they wanted to do on it, it's way too oily.
No,
It's gonna be a
it's
hazard,
dangerous.
somebody's gonna get hurt out there,
Yeah.
what's gonna happen? Yeah.
Just be slick.
If
I
it
would stay off it,
rains-
and you get a little rain on top of it, and
Oh,
God
yeah.
forbid, I would just say, no.
Well, we can't close it down.
I mean,
We can
that's the whole
discuss that.
point. We've had this discussion many times. You can't close that road.
Most of you know that we had that truck up for auction, which didn't quite end out where we wanted, and at just shy of $20,000. I had to make the counter offer, what our agreed amount was at 45. The highest bidder had a week to reply. They opted to not buy it, but as it is currently, we can run it again and again, and it's still at no cost. It's currently back up running again as of yesterday.
Oh, it is.
For another two, I believe 10 days, or I can't remember, I think it's 2 weeks.
Same price or drop it?
It starts at a minimum bid,
Okay.
and it gets where it gets, and like I say, we're not obligated to sell it as long as you counter offer.
Are you looking to use this as a barometer, a confirmation that it's not going to sell at the price that we reserved it for? So we're looking to move it.
I think it's the wrong time of year.
Yeah.
I think later in the years, you get to like where now the villages are passing their budgets
Yes.
and look at how long it took to get our truck, say, promise you January, but you get it in March. Most people realize that if you're buying a truck, then you're not gonna have it till March or April the next year, and then if they need it in November, our trucks could be an asset to the municipality.
I mean, they're willing to pay $45,000. They may need a couple of years to get a new truck, or let's say minimum
Yes.
14 months, let's say. They spend 45,000, they'll get a couple of years out of that truck.
Sure.
Okay.
So, yeah, and like I said, you know.
So we'll just hold on to it until.
I would, yeah, I mean,
Right.
it's probably costing us something, but you're not gonna give them away, that's for sure.
Well, that's it.
We know the worst case scenario, because we do have an offer from one of the dealerships that made an offer to buy them both, and it's a little low, but that would be worst case scenario, I guess, if you really wanted to sell them and get them out of our offer property.
And Ken has voiced his opinion with his thoughts in the past that it's not, right now we have 2 extra trucks. It's not a bad thing to have 1 extra.
Part accessibility, like say if a truck does go down, it might be, a blessing in disguise to have one of those sitting in the garage during the snowstorm. And that always happens when you need them. You know, to have a spare truck that you could go out and plow a road with for a day or two while you're in, and waiting for parts or repair.
And also, Rick and I were down there the other day, and Ken and his guys cleaned out their parts room. I mean, it's cleaned out. But the point is, did that gentleman come and did he give you any
No.
insight on? He did.
Not yet.
Not yet, oh, he hasn't been yet.
No, he's-
Because he has literally a
That's
ton of
surplus
parts
stuff for
Okay.
sale?
that we don't need.
It's just part, it goes back prior to, like, back in the days when Kent Pratt was down there. We had all those Ford trucks and they used to stock parts on the shelf, and you got old Ford parts and John Deere parts that are just, obsolete for
Sure.
anything
Oh, yeah.
that we have. Well, there's value to it out there, and the
Whether
same
whether
service.
he, no pun intended, whether he parts it out or
Right.
a group, because there's brake drums there, there's everything there.
Oh, sure, yeah. If you have the time and to liquidate that stuff,
Yeah.
well, a lot of work. You could do it either yourself, or the auction guy can come and take pictures and just say Ford and John Deere parts lot. They take pictures and they put it up for bid, and you never know. But it's not doing us any good by
Right.
sitting on the shelf. It's
Yeah.
taking up space.
Anything we got out of it would be a benefit.
Sure, yes.
Subsidize Kenny's exponential spending next year.
Yeah, right. We interviewed a couple potential candidates last week. We are going to move forward and we're making a recommendation to hire Emily Barney. I'm sure you know Emily Barney. We only had two candidates, and she actually interviewed fairly well, considering got her big button calculator if she needs one, but the computer will for the math.
Public meeting.
No, she did.
And this is coming from Emily.
She-
It should take some
She did very well. She did.
Surprisingly, yes, I mean, she did interview very well, and it was pleasantly surprising how well she did. I mean, after the first brief meeting that we've had, yeah, I think she can do it, and I think, unlike another candidate, I think that she can capture the scale process of how it works. I think she has that level of intelligence to retain numbers and faces, and she works out in the community. I mean, she works part-time at Big Slide, so she knows a lot of people. And I think once you familiarize yourself with a face, with where they're from, learning the accounts, I think she can grasp that. And,
Yeah, one of my concerns was knowing the young lady. She's always, I remember in high school, she was just, and Jason, she's very quiet. She was very quiet, you know, introverted and things like that, but not having anything to do with her in about 2 or 3 years. I was very pleasantly surprised. Conversation was great, had some really good answers to the questions. I mean, they were thought out.
By Labor Day, she'll be ready to write a book.
Yeah.
I hope so.
Yeah.
That being said, I've got 2 guys in my department, and I don't know how serious they are, but 2 guys that are talking about retirement. They're both eligible to retire as we sit today. We got the young lad, Evan Whitney, down at the transfer station that would like to transfer to the highway department at some point. He's not there yet. Going back to the CDL, I mean, now that the federal laws have changed on getting your CDL and having to go through like formal training, I talked with Louis down in Wilmington, and they're putting their candidates through CV Tech in Plattsburgh.
Okay.
And they're very flexible on like what days, like you say what day you can come, and they pencil you in on that day. So it was like a Thursday when the transfer station was closed, and Evan was willing to go get his permit and wanted to commit and go through this process. He could do Thursdays. It's 2 hours once a week. Training, he has to get 30 hours on the books and then 30 hours of drive time in before he's eligible to take his road test.
What's the cost? $3,000?
$2,300. 23 and change.
So if the board were to decide to do that, would we pay him for his Thursdays as well?
If
or
he would stay
just
on
pay
with the
for
town, you
course?
bet.
So you bet, yeah.
No, we would just pay for the course.
Right.
We would not pay for his time.
That's what I'm asking.
Yes.
Does
And
he work
I'm
for his
answering you, we
course?
would not pay for his time.
No, on Thursdays when you're closed, right?
Yeah, because it's his benefit.
Yeah, we would
No, I
pay, we would pay for
understand.
the
I'm
course.
just saying, we would pay for the course.
That's a lot of money. So.
Yeah.
We have to have some way of guaranteeing that he would not leave us once he had his CDL.
I know we can do that.
That's a good
We already
question. That's why
been
we're
around
here.
this one, guys.
But yeah, there's nothing we can really do, like even from the police department, that they're having really trouble trying to like extract the
Yeah.
funds for the, yeah, so it's just,
So we just kind of hope for the best.
but I just talked to him yesterday, he was upkeeping someone's
He's a good
property,
employee.
and he was
Yeah.
really excited about, and he talked a lot about it, and I talked how excited that he came on, so he doesn't seem like the type that would, I think he's very excited, and he's happy that, you know, with that sort of conversation that like he can progress.
Yeah.
What's the,
We should invest in it.
and I should know this, but what's the age for a class B?
18.
For a B?
18.
Is A at 21?
No.
No?
A is probably 21, yeah.
I think A
depending
is
on if you're
21,
going for
but
hazardous
we don't need
materials.
that. Yeah.
But for a simple B with air brake endorsement, that's 18.
Okay. Yeah, no, that would be a good.
Well, I guess that was my question is what would be the process, and can we fork the bill for his training? You know,
Board
and then
says
how,
okay,
and how do
I'd say
we,
fine.
what do you say,
It's
retain him?
$2,200
He's
is
not
not
going
gonna hurt
anywhere.
to
I don't think so.
No.
I don't think so.
Like anything, we need some guidelines and criteria so that you don't open the floodgates.
Right.
Have a
Well,
formalized
but I think
process.
that we would
Okay.
support any employee that wanted to get, that,
Yeah.
like, upon the recommendation of a department head. We would
That's what
support
I
any
mean.
employee that wanted to get additional training.
If these aren't
Plus,
written
it's
in.
a benefit that will attract applicants,
I
right?
totally.
And everybody's
agree.
doing it now too.
You just
To
want
get a
something
CDL,
that's not
everybody's doing it.
policy.
I think this is another thing that you just kind of the board just made a decision, but there was no formal process. They kind of just
We'll
did
write a
it, but
policy. I
now.
think that's where you're after, right?
Yeah.
Next year, you're the policy guy.
I'll see how I'll have ChatGPT type it up.
At the end of 2024, we are going to have our union agreement expire. So sometime next year, they're going to be touching base with us to start negotiations. If the board decides to do something like this, I think it's going to end up being part of that new contract. So once it's in, it can't be taken out because it's real hard to get stuff taken out.
Oh, for sure, but we can include language in it that. Parameters that we'd like to follow.
Yeah.
And I kind of think something like that is mutually beneficial.
Right.
So big deal. I mean, we'll see the time, but I think it's fine.
Won't be long, we're gonna need a C&D CDL driver. Because when that lot is full, we're gonna be hauling.
Well, it never hurts to have
Well, you've
another
got 2 trucks to
driver.
haul with.
Well, my fear is getting to November, which I've heard one employee say, November.
Okay.
And if that happens, you lose a driver in November, and if we're starting at scratch, how do we put this kid through school in November?
Yeah.
And it's gonna take you 3 months to get a license, you're gonna go all winter
Right.
down at least a driver, if not 2.
So what do you have?
Providing nobody else gets sick or injured or takes vacation or whatever.
So kind of, that's.
And I'm not getting up early and plowing, okay?
They do.
Yeah, it's a good thing it's something.
Yeah.
What do you feel, what's the time frame that you need, because you were just mentioning that, because if we want to do that and formalize a process, then we kind of have to do that a little bit of a head time, get some lead time in order to be.
Oh, sure, well, he's gonna have to get his permit first, because you gotta, like, if you're gonna go to CV Tech, you gotta go there prepared with your permit in hand. So he's gonna have to take those steps himself.
Okay.
Study the manual and then do what he does, but like I say, to get a license, I think it's gonna take like 3 months for him to get his license as it
And
is.
you want it by October, you thinking? Maybe like latest?
Sooner than later, that's why I'd like to start as soon as possible.
All right.
So it'd be nice to have them come in with it. Not do it well.
How much does it cost to get a permit for a class B?
I don't know.
Because I will say, it is town policy that we do pay for renewals of CDL driver's license, so would it be,
That's in our personnel policy already.
so would it be reasonable to pay for the permit for, Evan if he decides to do that?
Or just.
I don't think the permit was that much.
I don't know, I have no
I forgot
idea.
what I paid. I think that maybe with everything changing, it's going up.
That makes sense if we're paying for the renewal.
Of course.
Bring your receipt back, we reimburse you.
Yeah, you have to pay up front and then.
Bring back the passing grade and your receipt.
That's it.
Yeah, right, and then submit for reimbursement.
So the decision is-
Hard this time.
So do we pay for all town employees to have a CDL?
Yeah.
Well, of course.
If you are in our DOT drug pool,
I'm not.
Right.
I got you.
You
he
don't.
cannot legally drive one of our vehicles under a CDL.
Unless we hire.
Because he's not in the DOT drug.
I was like,
Like you have to go on to the, you go on to the FMC, whatever what that website is, and you're registered in there? Are you?
Clearinghouse.
The clearinghouse, the federal clearinghouse?
I don't know.
Yeah, so.
I mean, put me in the pool. You're gonna pay for my license. I'm going to the
Well,
pool.
but I got,
Can't do anything in the pool.
we'll pay him for out of Chuck.
There's like $9,000 that are allotted to you.
Before Ken leaves, so did you talk to him about the gas situation in the boat?
Yes, yeah, we're done.
Okay.
Yeah, we're good. Ellie, just catching you, yeah, I was gonna do it in a different time, but it's a good point. One of Terry's questions was about fuel.
Yeah.
Ken keeps it all.
By bringing gas to it?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, he
I
goes
guess
and
not
gets the
ethanol. I don't want to
nine.
use anything out of our pumps down at the garage because
That's what his credit
that's
card's
correct,
for.
yeah.
So because you have to have non-ethanol.
I would prefer to,
You don't
I
have to,
mean,
it's
it's
a
probably
better
a
situation.
$12,000 motor and it has like 8 hours, and I'd hate to contaminate your brand new engine with a crappy gas. It's just,
Yeah.
and the shelf life on non-ethanol gas, when you put it in storage, will last 6 months.
Oh, really?
As well.
Good to know.
Yeah, no, because when he took it out last night, and I asked Ken this, I mean, I have no idea what boats the size of the tank or anything, but he said, you know, a tank of gas will last a long time,
It's a big tank.
and it was a half a tank yesterday, so that's what.
Well, it was a half a tank when I was up there Monday. There's already a half a tank. So whatever they did the other day, they didn't burn very much.
That's, I mean,
It's
he was
a
only up
tank.
to, yeah.
My boat holds 26 gallons, and I think that one does too. It's a big tank. It's not just a little 5-gallon can that you hook up like that.
And like I said, they were out less than 2.5 hours yesterday.
Good.
Yep.
To make it, yeah. I use a card. Kathy got me a credit card, and I go to a non-ethanol pump, and I get.
Okay.
And I bring it to the boat.
I was gonna let Ken know, I'm planning on using, I'll go through Chelsea first, but you should know Jeff called me from Adirondack Storage Barns. The cabin's getting moved Monday.
Okay.
He has one stop in the morning in Saranac Lake and then gonna call me. I put him in contact with Mike or Chad across the street to unlock the gates. The only thing I'll need help with is bringing those 6x6s up there to have them ready as he tips it, puts it in place. So I know you guys will be busy, but just in case, early Monday morning, you can put forks under those 6x6s and put them over there, or I'll throw them in the back of my truck, whatever.
No, we'll get it
One thing we discussed, Ken and I, and Rick was there, is how we doing on traffic into the transfer station area that way? I mean, should we lock that gate?
there. Well,
Oh, you might as well bring them up to date.
we had the discussion today with.
Okay, then, okay.
And, ironically, with Doug Bauer being here today with.
Oh, he was here.
And another guy and a couple gals up here to discuss whatever y'all discussed here. Just crap timing, doing their drive through the airport property. Here comes a lacrosse ball over the fence and a kid. So they close the gate on, and the kid's like, no, I need my ball, you know, and it is important to keep, it's not just, you know, I mean, there's a lot of through traffic in that back way. Employees, the vendors that have their equipment out there, and the grass guy, Jim Gerard goes through the back way to get to his equipment. Partners, you know, everybody goes to that back way, and in my opinion, now that Sharice has her gardening supplies and the flowers there, it's basically a storefront, whatever you want to say, it is what it is. It needs to be locked up. And the downfall, like I say, you get there and I don't know what you ain't here, but they want it open and I want it closed, and I can't win this fight, but we are getting a new tenant out of the airport. And if the traffic continues going that back way, I'm not making the threat of there's gonna be repercussions. There could be repercussions where you lose, it's called a RSA, runway safety area. All access back there, we really need, and it has to be stressed to all employees more. Park district, Zach drives his mower from the airport. I don't know why it can't be parked over at the lacrosse field with one of those sheds, or maybe the new shed that you get there. And then all he has to do is, we have the gates installed in place. We're gonna have new gates, which, you know, it'll be better, especially with the pickleball courts, but those back gates need to be locked.
Well, at least, and I see both of them, but at least the big one.
For sure.
I mean, the one that, I mean.
And the big one is closer to the garage?
No, the big one's closest to the fields.
Fields.
Just before you break into the
I mean,
fields.
that one, because it's one thing for people to know the back way, the smaller gate, okay, and yeah, Sharice is there. However, that big gate is right there, exposed to all the people cars park, and there's your access to the airport.
This is,
Yeah.
this is.
One incident with a plane and a truck.
And not only that, but with these new folks coming in, there's gonna be twice the amount of charter traffic. Two planes are gonna be in and out,
Right.
and they've already told me they are big security
You can
nuts.
go through the front where the transfer station.
So,
go across.
With
You
our,
have a gate blocked.
with what you and Kenny got together with the new gates,
And you
they can be going in Recycle
anybody can
Way,
still access. They
up
go
the
to
hill,
front.
And that's
I need to
what'll be
get-
Well,
developed.
let's think, there's all these people, I'm dramatizing it, but all these people going in the back way now, okay, because they've been doing it for 20 years.
And it's easy.
It's easy, okay, I've done it myself.
Yeah.
I try not to anymore, but I've done it myself, okay? If we lock that big gate, there's gonna be a lot of, don't even lock the outside one yet. Lock the big gate, and they're gonna go around, and they're gonna go, shit,
Damn
stop
it.
it.
Or
They'll
they're
do it
gonna,
again.
or they're gonna cut my lock.
How do they, so what kind of lock is on it? Just a
It's
padlock?
just a padlock, yes.
Put
Well,
a
can't
bigger,
you get,
Why are they just trying
what,
to public?
can't you get one of those kind of plate locks that when
Did
you
you see
close
that?
the fence, the plate, so it can't, something that can't be locked?
For cutters.
Oh, I'm sure there'd be a modification done.
Can
It
we
seems
get-
like if it's locked, why do you?
oh, no, but that's,
Right, no,
but hey,
but drive
we
around,
talked
don't
about
cut
this,
my lock.
we talked, they cut your lock before.
Right.
He cut your lock. Certain people are gonna go through there and go, oh, I have a right to go through. But if we, and then if it happens, you find out who did it, and there's the one person, if it's locked, 9 out of 10 people are gonna turn around and gotta do it again.
And last year, the security for lacrosse during the big tournament, when that gate was unlocked, even though the padlock was still there.
Right.
Took the padlock,
Right.
so we couldn't lock it.
It's just adopting a new system.
Yes, it took to get away from the complacency that that's the easy way in.
Right.
Yes, teaching
Well,
everybody
that's
to
what I
go
mean, if
through.
we start locking it, then over time, hopefully a short period of time, they just won't do it.
Right.
So I say we lock it.
Yeah.
I just say we go get an expensive lock that's over time. You can cut any lock.
Now,
Get a trail camera to put up there so you can see who is doing
keep in
it.
mind, we have to get word to the village because on weekends, they sneak through there with garbage.
The garbage that they do is the garbage removal on Main Street.
They
come in
shouldn't
there
be
and they-
sneaking through. When they
Well-
have an account, they should be going over the scale.
They do.
Yeah, they do it early in the morning.
We watch it on camera, we've seen it before, like where they'll weigh themselves, they come back and give us a weight of what they.
Oh,
have.
they do?
Yes.
Yeah, but I agree that
And that's
situation, but it doesn't explain using that.
Right.
Yeah, it doesn't explain, it doesn't, just because, well, we've always done it this way and this is the way we do it, so we're allowed to do it.
Here's the problem that we have to be prepared for. As the entrance gets to be recycled way, in times when landfill is closed, that road's gonna be a dumping ground. Like,
Yeah, people are just throwing
That's
bags of
the
trash in.
Yes.
Yeah, it is, but
Do we need a camera then?
Because you mean they're gonna be able to come down
Absolutely.
just a
What are you gonna
little
do?
bit, and then it's gonna be closed.
because they're gonna be able to get to the main gate, so you can't go to a landfill, but you can turn right up the hill to go to lacrosse fields.
no, you can't either. That'll be gated too.
No, because
Not
that's
when
okay.
we're open on
That's what-
weekends.
Oh, no, I'm just saying overnight or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So-
So you're just, because now there's a gate there, you're just saying the gray gate's so close to the road that they don't dump it. But if the gate is farther down, they're away from the road, they're dumping it.
Yeah, so like I said, there's the answer, camera,
And
there's
that's
the
where,
plate.
that's where one of our cameras is slated for with
Okay.
Right.
Dave
There
Janita.
should be a camera at the back gate too.
Oh, where there's gonna be two up on the fields.
Yeah, but I say, whatever you think, but I say we lock it.
Oh, I love to lock it.
Lock it.
Certain individual.
And the
Yeah.
important person is here, right there, listening to all this.
That's right.
Have my back.
Check her desk.
Do you have any sort of lock on it?
That's your
A pair of bolt cutters in every single pickup truck in the town.
Oh, but it was a building,
Shut
yeah.
up the locks.
Was it like rubber gloves?
So I guess where are we? Do we want to lock it?
Yeah.
I do.
We
It's
need
now
to-
bad timing to lock it though. I mean, it's literally in the middle of a lacrosse tournament. I mean, do we wait until there's like a little bit more notice?
Well, they're over today,
They are over today?
yeah.
Until the big one comes.
I tried to get there all day long, I couldn't get there.
When the big tournament
No,
comes,
it's
I mean, I hate
not.
to say, even residents know that, or competitors know that there's a back way in there, so they don't have to sit in line at the traffic light. They bypass it and go in the back.
So then we.
That's not just vendors or
I
staff.
just want to be able
it's-
to.
But still, that's no reason.
Yeah.
Think of the traffic jam as the walking around.
But that's still no reason. You know, and that's even a more reason to lock both gates.
Yeah.
So that all these people increased their access to Teresa stuff.
But we really can't enact this new policy till our new gates are in.
the whole new policy, but we can cut down on that.
Oh,
We can
yeah,
lock those gates.
We can
Yeah.
lock the current.
Can we communicate with department heads and say, this is what the policy is?
we've already taken care of 70% of it.
There.
Well, but I do think it's important to so that the cross.
Yeah,
like,
okay.
that's
That's
really
right.
just so that vendors know, so
Right.
that just
Yes.
we have
Until,
security issues back there, you cannot use the back entrance anymore. Sorry.
until we have a place for Zach's or both of our new machines. Does he have a key to that lock?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
They should be good as far as being able to unlock. Like I said, the village is one thing to unlock that.
Yeah.
Needed to get in there. It's Memorial Day weekend, it was a long weekend. They had to do garbage on me.
Yeah,
And I understand.
It's overflowing. So.
And whoever's doing it, the driver, I know who did it. But anyways, couldn't find the key. Cause they
I
even
guess we don't
have
have
a
to
key.
pay them back for the price then.
So I decided to cut the lock instead of making a phone call. And that's-
All right, let's not belabor this.
One other thing to think about is, if you want to keep that access open during lacrosse, then we can say to George, okay,
It has to be manned.
have it manned
Right.
For vendors only.
for vendors or whatever we determine, or we mutually determine, have the outside gate, manned.
Right.
So,
So they
you
can
want to go
shuttle
through,
stuff back.
well, we're locals and we don't want to wait.
Then come back in our day.
I know that you can walk in.
I guess what Dana's trying to say is, we appreciate your enthusiasm, however, it's safer if we go back down.
That would be temporary. By next
Yeah.
year, it's over.
Yeah.
It's over. Yeah.
But I think that's one thing we can say to George.
Yeah.
You have a security staff, just, I don't care who it is, as long as somebody has it, just put them there.
And
But they don't really
I
need
was
to
looking
use
at that.
it.
I think the
Well,
ambulance
that's
as well,
I'm saying,
like, if
you
they
know,
get
I
stuck in the
mean,
lane,
it sounds like
ambulance
you're,
knows,
not that you're saying,
across,
sounds like
they go
you're
down to the
busy,
military.
but I don't know.
Right.
I
I
say,
can imagine the news.
but it's always
It's
supposed to
fine.
be,
It's fine.
their
Yeah, it's
security
lacrosse.
staff was supposed to keep an eye on that gate and close it when it's open in case like a vendor or the ambulance came in that way was another.
Yeah, I mean, that's, but that's the thing. If we determine, and we can talk about it more before lacrosse, if there is a reason that they need to use it, as Emily just pointed out, is there, then we can say to George, okay, if you want to use it for your vendors and or whatever it is, then you need to man it with one person to, like I said.
Sure, it's fixable.
They have
Yeah.
traffic control on the top of the hill. I mean, you're only 40 feet away.
That's it. That's it. So, like I said, I would lock that thing up.
And my last question was, people have been asking me about access to pickleball into volleyball. So what is the current access?
Free for all, let her rip.
Yeah, but you locked the main gate.
No, I mean, we don't know.
No.
The front gate, we keep open. There's another gate, just like Derek said, once you get beyond
So
where the
you're not
athletic.
locking that first gate
No.
anymore. And that's changed though.
But it's close, I've driven by it, like, when are the hours? Because
They're
I
supposed to
Well,
keep it
Thursdays
open
and
day.
Sundays when we're closed.
I've driven
Yeah,
by
that's
it,
what I'm
it's
saying. So then
after
why not
hours,
open?
it's closed.
It should be, because it should be open 7 days a week.
Yeah, I would say just leave it open.
Yes.
I mean, we're doing away with it anyway.
Yeah.
Well, we should have
It's
we have
gonna be
signage.
taken out.
The time saying, transfer station's open, this, because I know it's,
Yeah.
it goes, opens till 4 and it's closed on Thursday.
Yeah, the big sign.
But it's like would it confuse people because they've been conditioned to have the gate closed and it's like, it's definitely closed.
We're gonna leave it open now, 7 days.
Just leave it open.
So we'll still have the other gate at the other end.
Maybe an additional sign somewhere along the line or down below, prior to, yes.
Okay.
Is there fencing around pickleball and that space yet?
Yes, we
No.
can keep them out of the transfer station. Are you talking like
No,
keeping them out?
I got
No, I'm
information
talking
on
about
that.
the courts.
No, I got information on that.
Okay.
I was gonna wait till Chelsea.
Good, no, all right, good to go.
Good.
I never knew.
You thought you were gonna be boring.
Right, yeah, see, you were equally engaging.
Compared to what Todd has to say.
Less of an audience, but equally engaging.
Right, and you didn't realize Chelsea was behind it.
I never knew.
All right, you might want to hang around until she's done.
Ken, one last
It
question.
was totally the highway people cutting the lock.
Did you get the key from you?
I was here with Doug Bauer in the meeting.
I told her to find silent. I did text her back and I told her to touch me.
What do you need, a boathouse key? I'll give it to you right now.
Yeah, I'll take it. I'll get it to her. Last question with Doug Bauer. Did you ask him the question?
We did ask him the question.
He's sending us the,
No, we're talking about the uniform.
Oh, yeah, oh, yeah. Thank you.
Oh,
So
Well,
I
maybe
can
I didn't mind
answer that.
Okay, I want Doug Bauer's answer.
I'll give you what he said.
Okay.
So if, we have to have it appraised.
Right.
Once it's appraised, if the appraiser says it's worth $100,000,
Mhm.
when we sell it and we get 100,000 for it, that 100,000 is gonna reduce our next grant for the airport. So basically, we take 100,000 and we put it away for the airport to make up the difference.
we can't use it for something.
We cannot use it for something else.
So,
The airport.
but I
No
don't,
gain to it, like, but you could sell it instead of just letting it sit there, but you will not profit from.
The airport will well, the airport
Right,
will.
right.
well, yeah, but it just
Rather than
reduces
letting
the
it
grant, so. big
Well,
deal.
yeah, but it's basically a wash.
That's the
It's
best
better
we
than
can
letting
hope
it sit
for.
there
Yeah,
and rot.
so there is no time limit.
No, it's just that the longer you leave it sit there, the less.
No, well, supposedly Doug had said previously, after,
if appraisal value gets down to 3,000 or under, you can get rid of it.
Yeah, but
How are you
Ain't
gonna
going
do
down
that?
no, right. And he wasn't 100% sure about the
well, I think,
3,000.
well, the thing was, I think we should get it appraised.
Right.
But, so if it's appraised for 50 and we sell it for 60,
Then that 60 goes to the airport.
At least it's liquid, at least it's
Yes.
liquid. then.
even though it's above appraisal.
That's right.
Yes.
But it's worth 40 by the time.
Whatever we sell it for, if it's above $3,000 or whatever that limit was,
Right.
it has to be earmarked for our
So-
airport grant.
All right, Chelsea,
Okay.
you're up.
Gotcha, okay.
So as everybody knows,
Sell it.
busiest season. Horse show is well underway. We have our permits for the Beach and Booth Commission. We got them in record time, which is amazing because they're down to inspectors. So Kristen is really happy with us and we are really happy that Kristen is happy. So camp can start, beach is open officially. We have 12 lifeguards. We have 60 new commission staff, two of the biggest staffs we've had in probably 10 years. Which is great because we have no fence at the beach now. People are excited. They want to be there and it's already busy, even if it's raining, even if it's overcast, people are there. We have 170 kids signed up for camp, which is
How many
huge.
did we have last year? Like
150? Yeah, like 145, I think we have, so around 150. So we were able to take more because I will be a presence down there and can take bodies if I need to. And we have a CIT and one extra counselor. So that's great because we didn't, the
Who's
only
your
people,
CIT?
Anissa's Kunjanen.
Huh.
So that's really great. The only people on the waiting list right now are people who are from out of town that come here for the summer and have homes here. We would love for their kids to be able to come to camp, but our locals are our priority. So they're on a waiting list. And if the numbers go down midsummer, their kids are welcome to come. But we have to leave those spots open for our locals and people who work in the community. So those two things I have no concerns about whatsoever. We are working with the school to provide food again. So we're working on snack, but right now we have lunch, which a 3-option lunch, and we're trying to get snack, like I said, but people have been asking about donations and we've been telling them, snacks, chips, granola bars, things like that. If you want to donate to Camp Placid, that's what we need. Kristen said that was okay. So we're good with that. And that's what we want. That's what the kids need. Because if we can send them home with an extra snack, then that's great.
And you have allergy records on every kid anyway.
Yes, and it actually goes on their sign-in sheet, so we know every kid in every group what allergy they have. So we are also working with the school. Just met with Keith Clark last week. Our biggest concern is the last 2 weeks of August because those are the hardest for parents because camps are over. And if you don't go on vacation, you have 2 weeks to figure out what you're going to do with your kids when you have to work and they don't have school. So we extended camp to the 18th, and then Keith Clark has worked with us and a bunch of venues around town to create a sports camp for 4 days so that they do not need to be permitted. So they're asking us to give three counselors to work 4 days the week after camp starts. And we went back and forth, but they're asking that we pay them.
After they announced that they would be there.
That's what we're really, really hoping
We
for.
have a figure.
I already am gonna have to ask you guys for a budget adjustment because we only budgeted for 15 counselors. So the fact that there's an extra one.
But you budgeted for that extra week already.
No, I
Not
budgeted,
Camp Classic. Did you just say we were running camp next week?
Yeah, I
so
mean, but
the
we
budget
figured-
for this year was budgeted based on the same number of counselors, 15 from last year, right? It was 15?
we had 15, yeah.
15 counselors for 6 weeks. That's what the budget was based on. So there's going to be a budget amendment. You guys are going to have to.
Because of the one extra counselor. But Chelsea, are you also saying that it's now 7 weeks?
It's 7 weeks.
Yeah.
It goes from July 5th to August 18th.
We didn't know that when we made the budget. So.
We're just paying the salaries of 2 employees for 4 days.
No, but.
That's how confused.
That's what- that's
in
what the
addition
budget-
to
Yeah, I'm
requesting
thinking that-
another whole week worth of payroll
Okay.
and another
Hold on a
position.
second. Rick and I are confused.
It's an extra week.
It's an extra.
Plus.
It's more.
4 days.
Plus.
Plus
4
So
days.
it's 9 days.
And
So
one
I think for
counselor,
9
an
days.
additional counselor.
Right, okay,
Yeah,
that's,
but you're asking for 16 counselors for an entire week and 3 counselors for 4 days.
right,
Correct.
right, thank you.
Yes, we are.
Yes.
Is this your official ask?
Yes, it is. Because we're not actually, we will go and fight for it because as a parent who has nothing for their kids to do, 3 weeks is too long in August. It's almost the entire month of
No,
August.
no, we're
Our
just trying to
camp
get a
should
grasp
be
on what.
longer.
what-
It should be longer. We're
Lot
the
of others.
shortest running camp in the Tri-Lakes.
A lot of the other school districts actually go back to school in late August and early June. That's fine.
Yeah, and most camps actually start the Monday after graduation. But we give our counselors a week of bonding and training, and so that when we start camp, we're starting after everybody already has the 4th off. Parents and everybody are back from vacation, and then we go straight through.
We are fortunate in that we're not scratching our heads to find counselors.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
We're turning
And
kids
we're-
away.
and we're
'Cause without the amount of
almost
staff
30
we have,
kids.
No, it's great.
we had to turn a lot of people away these last couple of years because we only had maybe 11 or 12 counselors. And it was not enough.
Yeah.
And we had very upset people because St. Agnes Camp is extremely expensive.
Yep.
And it fills up quick and people have nothing for their kids. We're a free camp, we offer food, we go to the beach, we give swim lessons, we provide as much recreation as possible. And as you can tell, it's a very big passion of mine and these kids need 7 weeks of camp.
Nobody's
And I think
arguing.
it's great.
No, we got-
I did it.
No, but I'm saying I will fight for
No.
this camp always
Yeah,
because
no.
I think it's great.
Do you think because you picked up an extra counselor, do you think that's possibly maybe an indication in the future we can pick up more?
Well, we have a program
you
where
know
this
that,
girl's a
yeah.
CIT, so she went to camp till she was 14. Then she turns 15, she goes when we have leaders who are our oldest age group, which is 6th grade and up. And then when you become 13 and 14, you become a leader. So you help the counselors with the younger groups. That way you transition into a counselor in training. You're getting paid, but you already have experience
Right.
with the younger kids. So we have now set all of our kids, they have first aid training, they have all of that, even at 15 years old, which is great because most kids don't even take babysitting courses and they should. So yes, that's what we do. And then we have the leader program, goes into CIT, and then these kids come back and they're our counselors for 7 years.
Good. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, if we can keep,
Yep, I
like you
think
said, if we can, if we've got waiting lists and everything like that, and
we do.
if we can look forward to maybe 2 new ones
Right.
next year.
Well, like Kathy said,
additional.
we wanted 3. We
Yeah.
lost 3, we were gonna hire 3 and that was it. And then we had a CIT approach us and she interviewed fantastic and she was great and Butch said, let's take her because
When you say CIT, what is that?
it's a counseling training.
Okay, so just to be clear,
Yeah,
every new counselor that comes on who's never worked for us is technically called a counselor in training per Essex County personnel.
Oh.
So, yeah,
really?
because they have no,
Me.
yeah, that's their thing. I just want to make sure that I understand that
Well,
Alyssa,
so Anissa,
Anissa is different than the other
yeah,
three.
so I guess I'm going by Department of Health, which is
Okay.
age 15 is considered
Right.
CIT and then 16 and up.
Link or something?
I mean, it can pick up that extra.
It's,
so it
it's
doesn't
like, it's in my
hurt.
camp safety permit.
They can pick up, like we did for Keith Clark's thing with the gift certificate.
So, I mean, next year, maybe what you want to do is think about budgeting for, I don't know, 18 counselors for an 8-week
Well,
program. I mean, it depends on the demand,
So
right?
we lost last year, I thought we budgeted for how many we had and one new one. So we lost
We
3,
did.
replaced 3, and then have one new one.
Right, this year we have one more than we had last year.
Right, but we didn't have, we budgeted at the end of last year for one new hire?
I don't think so.
I'll check my papers. I thought I had one because it showed us when we printed out in the middle of salary discussion.
Well, we did, and that's great.
Okay, so
I
let me
just-
check, and I think
What's
my,
next
I
year?
think we did.
Just sell a couple.
I think we did.
My mind is not
So
working.
I
Start
think I have it
trust.
upstairs, let me take it from me.
Yeah, if we did, then that's awesome.
Yeah, so if we did, then that would be good, and then we would just be asking for that last week. But other than that, I mean, things are really, really
Class.
solid there.
We're talking about additional funding, okay?
Anyway, so that's one of the reasons I'm here, and the second reason is because it's now time to redo our host agreement for Can-Am Rugby. They use our fields for one day, it goes up 10% each year. This was the final year, 2023, they paid $4,715. With 10%, we're looking at around $5,186. For next year, 10% for the next 3 years after that.
I'm good with that.
Yeah, I mean, it's been pretty standard for a long
You mean
time.
10% for 3 years or 10%?
10% each year,
Okay.
each year. So 2021 to 2022, it went up 10%, 2022 to 2023.
I thought you meant for 3 years, it goes up.
Yeah, no,
Up 10%
no,
for
we
3
get
years.
10% every year.
Okay.
Next year is their 50th anniversary. And without stealing they're from Saranac Lake, right? They're rugby. So without stealing the show, I still think we should recognize them for, 80% of the tournament is over here. Maybe we buy banners or whatever. I'm sure it will have pretty good press coverage. And I think it's something we should do. They've been.
Yeah, they've come a long way. They've come a long way. They used to be a little rowdy,
We
but
spend $55 to
But now
$60
they're-
Much more fun.
dollars a year with Joe
but now they're,
for
they bring their
chemicals.
families and stuff. They
Yeah.
can't do that anymore.
Yeah.
But they do bring a lot of business to the communities,
Yes.
which is great, and to Saranac Lake, so.
Just kind of
Our
going back-
neighbors.
Going back to that first one, do we agree to move forward with Chelsea's ask? Or are we waiting for the board on? Do we need board action?
I
Or do we
think,
need a
I think all
conversation?
we have to do is talk about funding source. I just made it.
formal budget adjustment.
Yeah, and I'm here this week so that next week when it comes to it, because I'm gonna look for that paper that had what we budgeted for this year from last year. So if we budgeted for one new hire, then that would be.
If you
The
don't
other
want
thing,
to
though-
use fund balance, I don't care if we go to ARPA funds.
So I'm just going to say the other thing too, and not remembering exactly what we did, I'm pretty sure that we didn't budget for more than 6-hour shifts. I think they're working longer hours, right, this year?
Let's see, so,
I think Gillian alluded to the fact that they were working longer days.
well, pickup starts at 3, which would be about 6.5 hours.
Yeah.
But the counselors don't get out of there
Until
until
they have to clean
after all
up
the
and
kids
stuff,
are
right,
gone.
yeah,
Right.
so-
So that will be a 7-hour day,
So,
I would say,
okay.
to be safe, I would say. Yeah, although last year they did early last year the hours were longer. They did early drop off at like 8:30, and like they were out of there sometimes not till 4. So we lessened the time in the afternoon, because it's definitely the parents lag on the pickup more than the drop off.
Okay.
So we said starting at
Why does that
3,
happen?
so we can get the counselors out by 3:30 and do
Okay.
their meetings instead of after.
So you're hoping that they
done
won't
by
do more than
3:30.
7 hours, that's the goal.
That's the goal. Yes, the meetings, yes, we have to adjust stuff day to day, but it does not need to be that. It needs to be like this, given this bad, this is what we do, moving forward.
No kids.
They
just
were
make
acting
bad
out their
choices.
They
original
just
life.
have emotional disabilities.
No, they just make bad choices.
But we learned a lot, so we've come a long way, I think. And I think it's really just going forward and going up and getting bigger, and people are excited and happy, and people are choosing our camp over other camps, so that's what we want. But for this, I put a copy of this in everybody's mailbox, so you can look and see.
So you'd like that on the agenda for next week?
Yeah, because I told Cam that I would talk to the board, we would get some figures, put them into this. Obviously, we have to change Roby's names on there, we have to add all these new dates and everything, which I can do. And then you'll sign it and we'll give it to them at the end of
So you'll
July.
give me a proposal sheet?
I'll give you, yes, if everyone agrees to the 10% for the next 3 years, then I will come up with the figures, the dates, a new agreement, and then I'll have it for the board meeting next week.
Do you think 10% is realistic, or do you think it's excessive?
Has it increased?
Increase?
It's not a very large amount of money.
No.
It's usually, so it's
Like
between
4 to 5 grand a year?
$390 from, it was the increase from 2021, or from 2022 to 2023.
And that's the way we've been doing it
Yeah.
each
I mean, it's not like,
It's not a lot.
it's
less
not
than
like
500
lacrosse.
bucks.
Lacrosse gives us 25,000 a year.
Right.
Yeah.
It's different.
I could see, yeah. That's-
Yeah, and for one day, a couple $100, I think is pretty reasonable. I think it's,
Yeah.
like you said, standard. It's pretty reasonable.
Yeah, if you
They
take- if you take
accept
the
it.
cost
They-
of what we're doing and you divide it by
It's
365.
Right.
The
Right.
numbers have
Basically.
increased too over
They
the past
have,
few
yeah.
years. So you've got that additional cost
Yeah.
of maintaining the fields afterwards and all that other good
Good.
stuff.
And it's a tough date anyway, because then it's our turnover until the big lacrosse, so.
Can you CC me on
Yeah.
that? So I have it for budget.
So then we'll get the contract on for you, and you will cover that added 1 week and 4 days with 3 counselors in your budget amendments?
We'll figure it, well, not for this month. Because we've got enough in the, we've got enough
would be
in the
in
budget right
August.
now, for right now, so it'll be for next month's board.
So you don't need us to accept it in July?
No,
No, I wouldn't
Okay.
say, because they don't, this camp doesn't even start until the
We won't
last
run out of
week of
money.
August.
not that fast, yeah.
Yeah, and that's really it.
Talk about golf.
Yes, and Emily and I have gotten ourselves into
Kids
running
golf.
some kids golf. Out at the golf course. I didn't bring up anything golf course because it's really just self-explanatory in the summer. They do well tournaments every weekend and they're doing fine. So
Even with the rain?
even with the rain, we have
Okay.
people out there. They want to go.
Green should be very
We're
good.
like,
Yes, the green.
we're like at what, like 560 memberships or something like that now?
And I haven't even, I'm going out tonight to get the
asking at
papers.
this point last year, how many memberships do we have?
I think we're right about even.
Okay,
Oh, no, we have more now.
Do
than
we?
had last year. Oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
this week,
oh, yeah.
okay.
Tell us about
We have
attitude
coffee.
adjustment out there in the kitchen.
Going to talk to him tonight. So I'll let you know tomorrow. But other than that, everything is going well.
Here's why I'm planting the seed about the golf lessons though, is so I had a good talk with Jeff, and Jeff was very hesitant to do youth lessons for 5 to 11 because they're difficult. I'm looking at parents, like,
I teach.
or T-ball. I mean, do you see T-ball? It's literal chaos.
Yeah.
And so Jeff said, I'm not doing it, I'm sick of it. And I said, come on, Jeff, please. And so Jeff asked, I said I would be there. I was like, I will be there to help just like regulate and, make sure kids are listening, staying in line. And so then he asked Jack Armstrong. Jack Armstrong said yes. So Jack Armstrong is the only one actually doing the lessons. And Jeff had never said he would not do the 11 through 14.
Yeah.
And so Jeff was always gonna do them
Okay.
because they listen, they're capable of listening. So I told Ted that I would also get one more parent volunteer, which Chelsea graciously agreed to. So we will be out there, and it's $20 for a 1 hour lesson, which I had some people push back on me. I said, I'm volunteering, I'm gonna pay $40 for 52 kids to be there. So how do you think I feel?
That's all? It's my dog?
So in terms of budgeting for next year, I actually think that it would be great if we could budget some money to do this for free. To actually have a free
Okay.
clinic, and so it's only 4
And
sessions.
promote, all right?
We are
Yeah.
trying to build our future golfers. If Trevor is
Yeah.
supposed to stay in
Right, makes
business.
sense.
we have to-
It's true.
Yeah, that's, I was waiting for something like that, you can say something like that. Yeah.
That's a good point though. She's right.
I know,
That's
really.
right. That's the point of-
But I was gonna say, it's spectrums all over the place.
Chains on the gate.
I will piggyback on that because I agree with her. And another whole idea behind the sports camp that Keith came up with is the things that they're offering are not normal things that kids can do. There's no basketball, there's no soccer, no swimming, nothing like that. They're going mountain biking and rock climbing and all sorts of stuff, but it's age appropriate. So like if a kid wants to go mountain biking and they're 11, great. But if a 5-year-old doesn't know how to do it, they're simply gonna learn how to ride a bike. And maybe they'll learn how to not have training wheels. Great. But those are the things that they're aiming towards, is to give these kids experiences they're not gonna have. Not even at Camp Placid. Like these are totally out there experiences that maybe mom and dad can't afford lessons or maybe whatever. But that camp also filled up in less than 5 days.
Okay.
So parents are excited, people are excited, community's excited. And golf is one of
Obviously,
those
I
things.
think we have to cap it at some point, like
Yes.
whatever we budget for, then do the math backwards and,
Yes.
maybe it's 30 kids for 1 hour sessions for
Are we
quarters.
gonna
We're
count
talking about-
hours?
No, because they're paying.
But we're talking about additional staff for that camp, right? You don't want to have just rely on adult volunteers.
No, we don't need to, it's 1 hour.
Yeah, it's
Oh, so
1
it's-
hour,
so-
yeah.
okay,
I'm
It started with
4
2.
hours. I made it sound, it was
We
gonna be
changed
2
it
hours.
already.
I can't commit 8 hours.
Okay.
So
Well,
it's
we can
like,
talk about
it's
it
just,
then.
No,
yeah,
that's
it's
good.
4 weeks and it's.
Yeah.
But I just want to be,
It's already
because the
employees,
club
yeah.
does run a similar program, and the club is the same price, and so then people push back to me and said, why is the private club the same price for a kid's lesson as the public course? And I said, you know what, I don't control Jeff, but I do control budget. I was like, with 4 other people, so
Right.
maybe I can fix that. Or maybe we figured out with Jeff so that if we write it down to $10, because we give Jeff some money on our end to cover the lesson.
I was gonna say, because Jeff is keeping those lesson fees for himself.
Well, and he
They
said-
don't come to us.
They don't come to us, but I mean, I can technically go to Jack, but there's.
Well, or
Yeah,
whatever,
it has to
I'm just
be on
saying,
the
they
Jeff.
I would hope.
they're not a revenue stream for the
No,
town,
absolutely.
which is why we can't control what they charge.
Which no one wants to hear that when I say
Right.
it.
Oh, no.
And so I just say that I'll try to fix it for next year.
We don't give enough because of our free camp and the free lunch and the beach and everything, we don't give enough, so. But I get it because like $20 is $20 to some people, I get
It
that.
is, you
You
know.
know,
And so one great way
I get
to
that.
grow the game of golf, like to be like, no, it's free, like, have you never tried golf before, come and try it.
I can tell you, the elementary school, the number of kids on one hand that would even have an idea of like golf as a concept. And having that exposure is amazing.
And this is great because this is happening in July. And then actually golf is gonna be a part of that sports camp. So there might be kids who like just love it. And now they're gonna have 2 opportunities. And one of them is free. So
Mhm.
parents are gonna love that. And,
Yes.
you know, you could also be like, well, they could do sports camp, it's free. So if people come back on you for
Put it
that.
on your wish list for when we work on budget.
Oh, I don't know.
If memberships stay consistent, our leverage to pay for programs like this without hitting taxpayers is we have 50% left of the driving range. That is, I don't want to say it's found money, but in most cases, as membership goes up, our revenue at the driving range goes up because Jeff knows that is the cash cow. So when the people come in, he says, you better get your ass out to the driving
Yeah.
range.
And people use it, they
And
really do.
So that's a revenue that can pay for lessons, can pay for sports camp or whatever.
And even now with kids, you know, you're gonna expose them for a couple hours and they want it, and if they're enthusiastic, we need to go practice.
Mhm.
Where you go.
Oh, yeah, you
Yeah.
see a lot of
It's-
kids at the driving range. I drive past it every day, several times a day. And it's packed all the time, which is great. And people, it's beautiful. I mean, it's a nice view out there, it's quiet. And people sometimes will go there and wait for a tournament to be over or for tea times to be over, and then they'll go out and do their round. So it's a win-win.
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
I think that's.
Can we talk about, it's a good time to talk about pickleball, volleyball?
I dropped off all the equipment to
You did?
Jack yesterday, or this morning, and yesterday. Some yesterday afternoon, there was some here today, and there was one more net, I think, in there. Is that a net?
And we can
Or
install all
poles or something.
here's what I don't
Okay.
know.
Yeah.
I don't know if those line kits are templates where we have
Well,
to
one's a
pay.
pop-up, this is portable.
That's the net. I'm
Oh,
talking about the
so the
line kit.
oh, that one, the second box.
Because you have to have parameters or all you're doing is hitting the ball over the net.
Well, Wayne was asking about it, and Jack, so it might be something Butch puts them on to get taken care of.
Is there a preference?
What?
When you play pickleball, is there a preference for lines? The way
They should be painted.
Yeah, yeah.
That way you get it.
But I mean,
Could do
you
that.
know, I'm getting some, not pushing people, but when?
Yeah.
You know,
Well,
Well, yeah, it should be up and running.
Yeah, and that's thing, and we don't need, I'll get into fencing here in a minute, we don't need the fencing for them to be playing it.
Right.
So
Right.
therefore, if we can get the stuff on the court,
Mhm.
they can
Oh,
go
and then
play.
do a press release and a press event.
And then, I think somebody,
Yes.
you could give those. to-
Yes, exactly.
And they'll
We
give you-
we talked about it this morning, him and I already. and
Haley
you
sent
and
an
Jack.
invite to all
It was
the.
on Friday. I was looking around going,
Separated out of the golf course.
because I thought. we
Really?
could say-
But I think that's it.
Yeah, it was on the website.
Did I send you?
Yeah, she sent out, it was on Friday.
You were CC.
That's all I'm gonna
Probably
ask for money wise.
No, so it's like, I didn't ask Emily because you probably would have said, who's on the website? Like, why would I go to the website?
No, I asked Kelly very specifically.
It's been a little crazy, but it's been worth it. I think everything
So
is
she
working in
sent you the
a
press
very
release,
positive
which
direction.
talked about.
A little more expensive this year for a couple different things, you know, it's gonna be more expensive, we have more.
But in the press release, it was
Is
like.
what it is.
Please,
Derek, the
but
other
I
thing
think
is,
people are
so
happy.
same,
you really
same
want
topic.
me to send you.
We talked about.
It would guarantee, attendance. So
Yeah.
Where do we want it?
Because if you didn't text me, I wouldn't. I went back and like.
Realizing
It's in
that
bold too.
There's
Sure.
both going on.
Wednesday.
There'll be lacrosse for the big tournament, but still it should be faced toward pickleball.
I was thinking if we put it as you drive in,
Yeah.
okay, just as you get into the open area, right there.
You can, but just don't put it until I get that cabin in place, because I think that's how we have to drive around Monday
Okay,
to get to that pad.
okay.
Because I can't get it through any of our gates. We didn't outthink our buildings were in there when the fencing went
Right,
up.
okay.
You know what I mean?
Okay, so I'll tell them next week. I mean, not next week,
Yeah,
maybe a week from Monday.
good.
Okay, a week from Monday.
Is this the cabin that the water station's going on?
Piece of paper says.
You said you're putting a cabin down? I can.
Warming up.
Oh, this one.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And the other thing is, okay, so I got the, Jody sent me this morning, the numbers.
Yeah.
Okay, it adds just under 9,000.
But that's what they break it down,
To do what?
right?
But then add the
For that's Department of.
100-foot stretch.
So we're back to 90-some thousand.
Right, so
I don't
we're gonna
know
put,
what
Derek,
this
you wanna put
I'm just trying to keep the
the
terminology straight.
behind,
Beach volleyball.
the volleyball
So
courts,
calling all the
okay,
new counselors.
right
I
at
know,
the,
I know.
So when you
right
say
at the,
TNT, I'm like,
tree
I'm
line.
pretty sure she's
Okay,
talking
so
about something different.
all
Yeah.
go in. We're gonna put a 100-foot run each end. No gaps, just a 100-foot run.
See, what they do is they take that ugly snow fencing, orange, and they put half-ass stakes in there. And we're doing all this work to make something look right.
Yeah.
When the balls always go into the woods.
Yeah, we'll center it, so it's, I believe, what do we do the math? It'll hang out 15 feet on each end.
Yeah.
So 2 runs, 100, 100, and then that raises, I think, 88 something, just under 9,000.
But it doesn't add to our initial cost because the initial cost had us putting in gates that were 8 to 10 foot high and not needed. So we knocked those down to 5 footers.
I think 5.
And it knocked our original price from 92,000 down to 82,000. And then, so we're adding back on
Right.
88 or 9.
So Jody's gonna take that, which I got today, put it on the other fencing, no, not the gates, but the fencing, and send me that. And I said, send me that, and the same time, send me an invoice for the 50%.
Are we on a schedule?
Well, we are, because it was supposed to be done by now.
Right.
So and that's what I stressed. So as soon as I get that invoice, I'll get a hold of Kristen, and say, okay, here it is. I'll drop it off and say, pay it.
Kathy, for you, what that means is you might have to track a little bit of money because we have to have 50% down when they give us a date.
Mhm.
And 50% is more than what our share was for that fencing. I think it was 62 and 30 or something like that.
What did we get from Lee?
For fencing,
Yeah, the
we haven't
approved
gotten
amount.
anything.
No,
yet.
the approved amount, I'm sorry.
I can
I don't
look
have
I
at
think it's,
I never got the
I think we're fine.
I never got an approval
I
letter.
will, I'll draft this up and send it to everybody and Kathy, and then I will send you what I just said.
Thanks.
Yeah,
Okay,
good job.
thanks, everybody.
So that it's on next week.
Did I never got?
Just this, yeah.
No,
The
you-
commission said she's like,
you
wait,
probably got
but
it.
this will be on.
No,
Monday,
you got it.
so that we can have it, because we need it for the other slide.
But I
I'm
think
gonna
it's
give it to
less,
him
no,
and have him sign it.
the amount we need for
Okay.
the
So you'll
50%
pay it with books
is
for
less. It's called, that's all, yeah, it's all coming out of the 50% will all
I'm
come out.
gonna make a general announcement to everybody. If there's anything that you guys get that has a dollar amount on it and it says Town of North Elba, I need to have a copy.
Seems reasonable.
I mean, I'm just saying.
So I think that's, okay, so I'll take care of the Porter John as soon as Jody gets, I envision getting it tomorrow.
Yeah.
And Friday I'll I'm working tomorrow, Friday, I'll get hold of them. And
Pick the
say,
spot that's easy for the truck to get to. too.
that it has to, that's why I say when you drive in, put it right there.
Yeah.
Then that way it'll serve, it's, I mean.
And it will be on the right side of our fence that's going.
Yeah, that's the thing. It'll be, it'll be to service the court area.
Good. Thanks for hanging in
No
there.
problem. I have this for you to sign.
Oh, good. And what is this?
This is, so we have to sign up as grants gateway administrator to the state in order to get our funding.
This is for conference.
This is for, and then for any future.
We used to have,
Yeah.
when we did the stewardship grants for Lake Placid with Sable River Association or whatever they were, we used to have membership, an account with them, but it went defunct. It just, so she's gonna get a new one.
It's free. But also, do you want me to contact Bruce about putting a leaf plaque, not a leaf, about, by the pickleball courts?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or it can go on the fence.
I'd say put it on the fence.
But I think we as the grant recipient are in charge of like making it.
Oh, yeah.
And so it has to be made onto something.
Yeah,
I think they
they have templates and everything, but yeah, we're responsible for making it.
But I'm just saying it can't be a sticker.
No.
So
So will you do that through
I got a
like
piece of
aromatic
plywood.
oils or something?
I'll figure it out, I guess. Yeah, I'll probably ask Leaf how other people have done it.
Well, then, when you do that, kindly remind me, because I have Art Devlin helping me with verbiage so we can recognize Steve Short for like 47 or 49 years.
Right.
I don't want this transfer to go through without this town recognizing what he's done for a long time.
So Haley, I had asked MJ about a year ago, almost a year ago, and I don't know where it is, but depending if we want something, I had asked Adirondack Awards to have a template for Leaf.
I was gonna say, I'm sure Ruth could design, Leaf could design that with any other acknowledgements.
Okay.
On there, and then,
Yeah, so I don't know if they do, Adirondack Awards has a template for Leaf, but they can do it.
But I
The
also,
ambulance, we got one. Leaf. And then
Yeah.
they just pasted it on the side of it.
but it's probably just a
From
sticker.
Roost, yeah.
Yeah,
it
it
is.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
the
we
sticker-
need something
to
to.
reduce the stickers, there is a template,
Correct.
but I asked, them to have something.
I know that the UPS store has it because UPS store did it for a sign that we did at Homestead.
They
So UPS store also has like the high-res image, but it's how you want to put it. And now I forgot what location we're talking
I think the
Cool.
fence.
about. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I see that.
So it's like whatever, it's like corrugated,
Metal.
no.
It's
No, I
sort of
don't-
like how,
Corrugated poster board.
Nah, I don't.
But that's what Butch wants for fencing for signs at the beach.
It's gonna last.
why don't we
It'll
do,
last. I mean, they'll last, but, you're talking
It's not a
a
standard.
couple seasons.
why don't we have
Coroplast
something
doesn't
sent
last.
to the county? They do the street signs and the parking signs and stuff for us.
I can
They would
touch
be
base
metal.
with Jim Dugan to see what other style signs he can do.
But I guess what I'm saying is that I also need one for, we go to Punch, but the dock, because I heard Jim and Jackie trying to figure it out today, they want to put one on the dock to recognize
And
the
the park.
and the park, and McKinley Park to recognize Lee, which are all obviously valid places to put those signs. So,
The dock would have to be waterproof.
well, the ones that we're putting on the dock now are which wanted to be like steel corrugated
Keep in
cardboard.
mind, when we recognize Leaf, we're actually recognizing ourselves.
Yeah.
No, I was gonna say, it seems like we're gonna have so many leaf signs, it's gonna be real estate leaf signs.
No, because, if we're talking, as far as if we're talking coroplast or something like that, working with that stuff, with Iron Man, it doesn't last. It lasts somewhat, but it's, you're gonna make another one in 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, I don't care what it is, I'm just saying the 3 locations that it needs to be. And that I'm not in charge of 2 of those locations in the village.
No, I'd say, I would say, metal.
Yeah, because the school's gonna cut, from what I understand, the devices, what they purchase, they're gonna
Right.
The
cut,
template,
yeah, into metal and then be able to put it up.
Okay. I think that's the best way to go.
good.
I bet you can also find like an online
I was gonna say,
maker for $5 to make you a metal sign.
Shutterfly.
but I know Leaf will like design anything. If you want you said you wanted somebody else acknowledged.
No,
Oh, okay.
Steve Short is from the airport.
Oh,
He's
okay.
selling.
Oh.
So it's a whole separate thing.
Okay.
Just that whenever you were to order signs, if you are going to do that, I'd give you that information.
Okay.
Which is not a sign, it's more of a plaque.
Yeah, it's a plaque.
Which Adirondack Boards has like our high-res logo that they've done for the Virginia, we got one for Jay, for Jack. And then, so Adirondack
Are they
Boards,
still up there?
yeah,
Yes.
and there, so for that, I would go to Adirondack Boards.
Then you know what? I'll take care of that.
Okay.
Keep, and then you just have to worry about leave.
Okay, no problem.
But I would check with the village about, so you can just do it all.
Yeah, I was gonna
together
talk
and
to
get
them.
three. Alright.
And then the last thing I had, if I can find it, was, so I've been talking to Emily about applying for funding. Her idea was to do like a feasibility study for sidewalks on West Valley. I don't know.
And we did-
For this?
We did already allocate $40,000 on
Yes,
funds
okay.
for that.
Yes.
That brings
And
up one more
Yes.
question, sorry. Where are we, Derek, on the pathway?
Ah,
Yeah, oh, yeah,
see that? Go ahead.
I can't even. It doesn't work,
Because I went up there to look today and obviously nothing.
Okay, so today we talked to Larry Regan and Gabe, the two logistics construction guy and the owner, of course, Mackenzie.
Right.
They are on board with helping us, but it will be August before they can allocate time to move forward with this because of the work going on the hill
on the wall.
in the back, which is primary.
Oh, yeah.
But they are in full agreement of working with the school, and I offered town services if we could be, basically it would go in front of the propane manifold, which is, right how the parking lot turns right up at the top.
Yep.
Get across the berm there, and it's gonna be August before Mike Pratt and Tim Seymour can get together to move those two trailers. And I don't think, there was talk about taking out the basketball court as well. But still, once the trailers are gone,
Yeah, you got
that's the side I would stay on anyway
Yeah,
to give access.
yeah, there's plenty of room, and once those trailers are out there.
And our goal is to make things safe for them in the winter. Not just winter, but at least in the summer, there's shoulders down below. If they do walk one way or another, that's at least safe. with
Because,
snowbanks and
I
stuff.
looked at it a couple days ago, and I've been trying to go down West Valley a lot. And very little foot traffic increase that I've seen.
Yeah,
And the only area that's tough is from the bottom of their driveway heading toward Cummings Road is about, that's sketchy.
and the ditching.
Yeah, that's not, well, that's a sketch. But coming this way towards Saranac Avenue, you got room.
There is room, whether we do sidewalk or we do extended pavement, that's doable.
That's it.
But they're gonna have to cross the road.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they will, but that's,
But that's what this study.
no, they don't need to cross the road. Coming this way, coming towards Saranac Avenue.
Well,
Going,
If-
going up.
if we eliminate any ditching, it leaves everything coming off the hill onto now an extended shoulder that goes into.
But most of the ditching is going toward Cummings Road.
Oh, right.
Yeah, like I said, from their bottom of their driveway going,
So
That way.
cutting into the hill for extended could work as well.
oh, yeah, there's already probably 3 feet.
Yeah,
So, it's always a safety issue, but it's reasonable. But once you come down the bottom and, heading toward Mill Pond, that is sketchy.
Emily, where's the line for Fawn Valley? Is that village or town?
There's like the first 10 feet are village, and then the rest of it is town.
So the line is right there. My only point is, we'll need to work with the village so it goes somewhere.
Yeah, this thing. But the point is, whether we need a sidewalk or not, depending how much we need, majority of that's in the town
Yeah,
can be just an extended shoulder.
Yep.
But further down, something's got to be done. Whether it be
Let's
crosses.
listen to the ideas.
Okay.
well, I just have ideas for grant funding. I don't know.
I could pay for another idea.
No, but the whole idea with the feasibility, so
I
like,
don't know how much you've talked.
no,
Okay, oh, okay. So Emily was thinking a feasibility study to look at essentially if it's even possible to put a sidewalk in West Valley. I don't know if you want to clarify the details.
yeah, so, and then if you look at existing, so when we first started talking about it, I was like, well, what is this called? Like, I don't know what to call it. And I was like, oh, sidewalk feasibility study. Like, doesn't that sound catchy? And then Haley Googles it and it's a thing. And like, and she finds all these reports and the reports are actually so bad. Like, I mean, I know you go through them quickly and I looked at them quickly, but you're like, yes, this is the information that we need. And like, some of them even goes, like, what were the ones that I always talked about? Like the connections that it would make.
Right.
I mean, like, it covered the gamut of whatever you asked the consultant to cover, right? Like, whatever the budget was, the consultant covered it. But, I mean, it was looking at right-of-ways, looking at, if the right-of-way is here, this is how far you have 20, 25 feet, this is where the line would go. Some of them even talked about long-term financial commitments of what it would take to maintain the sidewalk. And then it was just like really useful information. And I was like, yes, this is what I need, a report that says what is possible. And I have a feeling that in certain places, they might even say, we don't know how you do it there. But at least we'll have exercised that, and where we can do it, or maybe where we're limited to a wide-ish shoulder is where we, there's gonna have to be some compromise in places. I don't think it's gonna be a perfect sidewalk, but the goal of this feasibility study is to do that. It looks at things of like where existing utilities are, so you're like the disturbance of utilities, and then like what it would cost to move those light poles. And
So the feasibility study only sets the scope of work so that an engineer can take that.
yes, and a lot of them had actually like engineered plans of like what it looked like. And so then you have this assessment, essentially, we take it for what we want, because it's like options, like this is what is possible. And so then we take that and ask an RFP. for
Ideas,
I
but
mean,
who does the
engineering-
feasibility?
An engineering firm would do it.
What do
No.
feasibility study?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so that's what we said too, we're like, who does this? And I was like, anyone who replies to like our RFPs about comp plans, they always have partners, so like within those firms, they might have an engineering firm that they partner with, an architectural firm, a land use code planning firm, so that they all like work
But
together.
it also could give us, you mentioned about, further maintenance too.
Yes,
Which is,
so they all had
that's
an
a big
element
thing.
of like, what is the future cost gonna look like? That was included in all of them. And yeah, and the one about, that had all the stuff about connections, I thought was great. So it like talked about how many households would be connected to a grocery store. And like, if you think about that location and how many households would be connected to a drugstore, two drugstores, two grocery stores, the school, if you're going that way.
Yeah.
40, between 100 and 120, just with the three facilities.
Yeah, but then if you think about coming off of all those Hillcrest
Oh, yeah.
streets,
Oneida.
they don't connect. So like, you see
Elm
those
Street.
Greenwood residents with their walkers out
Mhm.
there, and you're like, oh my God.
Cutting across, like,
Yeah,
seen them
it's not
fall down.
it's not just West Valley, it's everyone coming off of those streets that don't have a connection because West Valley's missing it. And yes, it's short-lived for like someone coming off of Greenwood, but it's still dangerous.
Yeah.
And so I just think having those, like, I think that needs to be an important aspect of what we ask them to look at, because it's a compelling story. So basically, like, the consultant is building a compelling story with some real facts about what is feasible for a sidewalk study.
Any idea if 40,000 is enough?
No, that was one thing that we need to figure out. So what I can theoretically do is just contact the municipalities who have done this and ask them. Because for a lot of these grant applications, you need to have something.
Like a 50% match.
Well, yeah, you have to have a match, but they also want proof, like, why is your budget $80,000? And right now, we're just kind of guessing.
Yeah.
I think 80,000 is reasonable amount to.
Yeah.
Well, and when I was looking at, one of the programs I was looking at said that for a like town-wide plan, you're looking at for larger, medium to large municipalities, 50 to 150. I figure 80 would be like a comfortable place for
And
us.
this would encompass the whole entire town.
Well, that's the
No,
thing. That's
not
one of the problems.
I'm not saying, no,
Yeah.
well, let's exclude Rainbow and Saranac Lake.
Or the,
just
at the
north of-
village, right? Like, at the village has sidewalks.
Well, and the thing is, to apply the program, there's two programs that we're eligible for this project that I can find, like maybe a third, but.
We're stretching, we're really stretching things, so.
Yeah, and so for the Climate Smart Communities one, it's a reimbursement grant. It's a 50% match, and it has to be a town-wide plan, and it's technically for biking and walking. And that one would probably be a stronger application, either partnering with the village because they have CEC and CSC certification. So that's an option. And we'd also be able to work with ANCA. They have a CSC coordinator who could help us with that whole process. The other is a smart growth grant, which is what we're currently using for our comprehensive plan. And that's also a bit of a stretch in a certain way because you can focus more on a specific area, but we're kind of stretching the definition because we're looking at like a street, not like a site.
So the whole idea of kind of both those grants is like community planning and like,
Yes.
and planning of a larger area, not just being like, tell us what we can do on this now.
But did the comp plan have like one of the objectives was for like biking paths and
Yes.
sidewalks that didn't materialize?
But that
That was a
helps
goal.
with the grant applications
Okay.
because we can use that and say we have some level of planning that indicates we're interested in this in the long term. What I can do is apply to both, and what the state can do is then look at both of those and decide what fits better. So I can just do that. But if I do, I am gonna need to get some stuff done for the climate smart communities one, because we would have to pass a resolution. And they give you the boilerplate one that says we're applying, we have to pass a resolution because I think ours expired for our task force. And so we'd have to redo that. So it's a little bit of work, it's not terrible.
I don't think it's a big deal to ask the village should be like a co-applicant, if that's possible. I don't know how you make.
You can, it is, you get like.
Because also the West Valley is half village, it's like almost 50% village, 50% that's not town.
And that would strengthen the application.
But then we talked about like if it needs to be more, if you just can't just say, look at West Valley, look at community wide. We'd say, well, why don't you look at where there's lack of connections, and the lack of connections we would ask them to look at would be to make it more of a broader scope. To fulfill the grant application would be to look at the missing Newman connection. So how it ends at the village line in Newman and doesn't either connect all the way through Newman or on Church Street. And that was the only really other one that I could think of.
What we can do is we put out the RFP, say we want a town-wide plan, but we want specific focus on like West Valley and Newman maybe.
Yeah.
And so they can give kind of like what they need to give to fulfill the requirements of the grant for everything else, and then provide the details that we're looking for like those areas.
Okay.
And that should be fine. But it's a bigger process. It involves, like, it requires some level of public outreach and engagement with the whole thing.
Because can't we?
Still an avenue?
It should be, and that's why the other thing I want to clarify is just make sure that we can, based on what I'm reading, I think we're fine, but apply, since we already have an open.
We already have an
project.
open.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because our confidence is smarter.
Yeah.
But does it help to say, particularly with West Valley, is saying we have increased residents because of
Yes.
two housing projects?
One of the big pushes, especially with the smart growth and actually with the CSC, is, you can help improve, like, there's less driving, so that's like a push for smart stuff. And then, of course, Safe Routes to School, and connecting like some of those lower income units to the school, to stores, to drugstore.
And they don't have cars, and also it's being green, because even if you do have cars, you have the option of walking.
So both of those we have strong arguments for, but also certain parts we're kind of stretching because we really want to focus on the one area, and they're kind of intended to be used. One intended to be used for the larger area, and one we're kind of just stretching the definition of like a site, it's a road.
And this can be folded into a broader study.
That's kind of what's happening.
Okay.
It was originally started out as.
But because it's a 50% match, like, if we're only saying we're committing 40,000, we can't do like a $200,000 sidewalk assessment for the whole.
That's the other thing that I'm not sure about. So the smart growth is a 10% match. So in theory, if we just went with that one, we could apply a larger. But it's a reimbursement grant again, and so you'd have to pay that upfront. Yeah. And I also don't know how that would work out when it comes to the application, because one, you're applying and saying I have 50% match, or you're applying instead of 10. So I have to just sort out the details.
Yeah, or like it's the one.
Probably just a resolution or something from the board saying, yes, we'll commit X amount towards.
Yeah, you have to pass a resolution for one of them that's saying you're committing a certain amount. The other one, they don't seem to care.
But I just wanted to make sure that this was a direction the board wanted to go, or do we want to just take the $40,000 that we've allocated and put an RFP out with $40,000? Or should we see if we can do a more comprehensive plan? I just don't think what I've seen probably past $40,000.
I have no idea. That's why I can always, I was gonna anyway, see how much those feasibility studies cost.
Yeah, I think, and like I said, I'd like to see if it includes it, if they're gonna project future maintenance and things
I
like
can
that.
send you the ones I found.
Because that's what, I mean,
I think he'll see these and he'll be
Thank
like,
God.
oh yeah, this is what I was looking for.
yeah, I mean, we want information, thank God Ken's not here.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
I wish you would have went way before him so I could have mentioned it.
Because I mean, that's the point. I mean, we have to buy a new machine.
No, we just contacted the village.
No, Brad said he would help out.
Yeah, we just.
And he would,
But still, we got a contract.
I've had
Yeah,
the
we don't have to
latest
buy it.
conversation with Brad.
so,
He loves sidewalks too.
no, so,
Okay.
yeah, so that allude on my time on the board, I just, without getting into specifics, there was a time at a former board, where there's only maybe one remaining member at that time. There was the safe routes to school, safe sidewalks to schools. There was some, let's just say confusion, which might have, might not put us in a situation where we could be as collaborative as we wanted to be. So maybe we need to kind of smooth that over, and I think we'd have
It's very
so you know what I'm talking
I think,
about.
but it's still the cost factor, obviously, and the maintenance factor and everything is, and if we decide to go, to be honest, if we decide to go one way or the other, we can justify what we want to do because we have that study.
Yeah, they essentially have a menu.
I just don't want to accidentally, like, not accidentally, but turn like what's supposed to be just a West Valley study into this whole big, like,
But if it doesn't really cost us that much
Can't
more,
believe
then why
I'm
not?
saying this, but if, I would entertain the idea of an internship from Clarkson that has the actual expertise to do it.
I've tried having this conversation like 8 times with Clarkson, and I can't get a straight answer.
An intern can't do this work.
Yeah, that's kind of what I
Except, like
could get.
professionals, like
Yeah,
imagine
Randall
the,
won't go for
imagine the
that.
Camoin housing study, but about a sidewalk on West Valley. Like it's data after data after
Yeah.
data, like it's just, it's useful, like an intern is not producing that.
And when I did speak to Eric, he kind of said as much. We asked specifically, can you provide X, Y, Z? He didn't say no because he doesn't want to, but
He wasn't confident.
he didn't say yes.
And recently, I've seen some studies that Clarkson's done, which are very good, but other ones that, you expect, you have expectations of something and you don't get it.
Yeah.
Because they can't do it.
Do you guys not remember the intern of the West Valley? Did you see them?
Yeah, that's what I mean.
That one turned me
Yeah, the
on.
yellow, yeah, I know, that's what I'm talking about.
But we had an intern at the county last summer that identified all utilities in the towns and is making a registry for all the towns. Manholes, power poles, transformers. So it's documented so that as the county moves into townships to do jobs, it's digitally,
GIS map with all the data
Patrick
that's in it, yeah.
do part of this? I don't really know what he's.
no, I don't believe so.
And then my big question is, the application for these is the 28th of July, which is enough time if I'm like on it. It's mostly the CSC requires some.
So I'll call you,
Okay.
whatever
that we
board
just
action we
need
need
to
to
get
do.
We have enough time, but we just have to make sure, we have to kind of be efficient about it for that one. The smart growth one is straightforward, doesn't require too much. But if that's something you want me to.
Well, I know right now all we have is 40 grand unless you want me to adjust that ARPA fund.
I know I keep saying that we are like stretching it, I still think it's a valid ask. Like, I still think it's worth
Yeah.
You can say yes or no,
Okay.
but I really.
Yeah, I agree.
Listen, the public will be honest before long, so, but I mean.
What do you
we
mean
need
honest? They've been
direction.
honest, they've been honest for 2 years.
I mean, yeah, I can apply, in worst case scenario, they're like, no. But what was my question? Oh, what I can do, I just need kind of an idea whether or not you want me to. What I can do is get some numbers, maybe from municipalities, get those studies from and see, because if we have enough to cover it, then we can apply. And send out the studies that I found to see if that's kind of what you're looking for.
Yeah, that'd be
Okay,
helpful.
that's good.
All right,
Good.
that's all I have for now.
I don't think we've told the whole, maybe I told them in email, I don't remember what I tell you guys anymore.
I don't read you,
Obviously.
If you stop saying, if you would send it to him instead of CCing him, he would read it.
Do you have your key?
I have a key. I don't know.
I do, thank you.
The comp plan committee selected SEG.
SE group.
No G.
It was because SEG or SE, yes.
The G was group.
SEG.
Don't mess it up with SEG group, but they very
So I don't think we talked about that, but so that the comp plan committee did select as, and I think it was the right choice. I did sit down in discussion, even though I didn't offer an opinion, I just wanted to hear what the discussion was. I know, can you believe that?
I can't believe that, but that's okay.
I'm still digesting that. Blood pressure must have been off.
No, it's actually really low.
And she's sitting here.
But we still do not have a contract from.
We don't, and I emailed them to ask, to start having those conversations, the group. And the guy was like, I'm on vacation with my kid for 2 weeks. And I was like, we're not gonna have a meeting on vacation with your son. But when he gets back, we can have that meeting. But we're still waiting on the contract from the state. I did talk to Mindy and Brad a little about it because they've dealt with this new reimbursement grants before. And they're a little skeptical. But I guess also they had a lot of mix-ups when they were into this process. So hopefully it won't be quite that painful.
I'm wondering, I don't have more time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Have a good one.
So we gave you the okay to move ahead.
Yeah, for now.
Good.
I'm sure I'll be back.
Yeah, for all that, yeah, we did.
Yeah.
So a while back, I sent you all the draft fund balance policy.
Yep.
Any of you looked at it? If you're okay with it, I'd like for you to approve it at the board meeting.
I
If you're
can't,
not,
I
please
can't
let me
even
know why.
remember the particulars of it,
That's fine.
but I remember being okay with it.
Just put it, so it just needs to be on the July 5th agenda.
Yeah, we would, please.
And you're gonna create it right after, or you're gonna create it for the next budget season?
If you guys adopt it in July, it'll be effective immediately.
Oh, okay.
So
You'll
we'll
send me
look
the-
at it during budget.
You'll send me the language?
Again.
Yeah.
Do you want the fund balance policy, or do you want me to just send you verbiage for all I need is a vote, a resolute, what do you call it, a motion to
Right,
accept it.
but for
or adopt it.
documentation, the public likes to see on our agenda.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
okay, so I'll send you
Yeah.
the draft, no problem.
Not that I didn't look at it, it's just that when people go online and see our agenda.
Your emails are probably 10 times worse than mine, and I can't find half the stuff I'm looking for in mine, so
Okay.
it's all good.
Rick is feeling the same way.
Apparently
So-
you really want Rick to show up again.
Okay, so while we're talking about drafts, Derek and I had already received it about a week ago, give or take. But I just sent to the whole board again, the draft financial statements for our audit.
Kind of looking at it.
Well, I don't know, how familiar are you guys with reading auditor reports? Opinions? Okay, so when you read ours, you're gonna see we have an adverse opinion on our financials, but it's nothing to worry about. I talked to the auditor. The reason we got the adverse opinion, which basically is the lowest opinion you'll get on financials, is because we don't have actuarial study of our other post-employment benefits.
Okay.
And we don't have an independent outside firm inventory of our fixed assets.
Okay.
Which is
Okay.
the same issue that the village has,
Okay.
the fixed assets. It's
So,
too expensive.
and I said, so besides those two reasons, how are the financials? And he said, everything else looked fine. No issues at all. It's just that they cannot give us even a modified opinion because of those two items. And that's based on their auditing standards that they have to follow for their profession. We got a good opinion on what I call the single audit, which is on the federal grants, the expenditure of our federal awards. And they also did agreed upon procedures for the court for 2022 so that I didn't have to do it. And that was fine, no issues with that. So what they're waiting on is a few confirmations to come back from the banks for statutory debt that we had outstanding at the end of the year, and maybe one other, I think an attorney letter or something, I'm not sure. So once they get those, they will send a management representation letter to us. And that will be basically the final step of getting the audit released. So when you look at these financials, they're going to look totally different from anything else you've ever seen from us, because they're what they call government-wide, and they group everything together, and then they start pulling stuff out and talking about adjustments and stuff. Just ignore the first set and just look at the ones that say governmental funds.
You don't mean the legal letter they needed back from Shackner's
No.
office related
They
to
got that.
litigation?
They got that.
Yeah.
So I don't know if they sent one out for Ron Briggs or not, or
Okay.
anything else. So it might just be the confirmation for the debt that they're waiting on.
Okay.
So anyway, that's where we're at with the audit. And they're willing to come talk to you if you guys want to talk to them or do a Zoom or whatever.
As long as it's favorable.
Well, I mean, it's favorable in the sense that they didn't find anything that I did wrong or that Jen did wrong, or, that the federal grants are fine.
She's pointing out.
Yeah, but to have those two findings, what are they called findings? What were they called?
They're-
I spent literally 3 hours this morning on a budget for a nonprofit.
Yeah.
Like,
Well,
it's a little frustrating.
It's an adverse opinion because,
That's the other one.
the best thing you can get is an unqualified opinion. That's the best you can get. Then you can get modified opinions, and they'll be modified for maybe you didn't implement a certain Gatsby statement and they had to do a few adjustments that, or whatever. But adverse is the lowest opinion you can get, other than them just declining to issue an opinion.
As far as the detrimental, we're down there.
Yeah, which you would hear, there was just a news story just, I think it was just this morning or yesterday morning about Vermont state auditors declined to issue an opinion because whatever, it was just all messed up. Those are just a
I
mess.
guess just my question is there any way that we can not have those as adverse opinions?
So for right now, for 2022, no.
No, yeah,
but-
I understand, but in 2030.
Going forward, yes, but it'll cost money because you
They
have
did
to.
a program to track your physical
No.
assets and depreciate.
No, I track and depreciate all of our physical
Right.
assets,
That's the
except for streets, sewer, water lines, that kind of infrastructure, because I have no way of doing that. I don't have documentation to start with. For our equipment, for our buildings, for our land, I had that. I had that from when I started here,
You
and
still received
because it's something that I have.
Right.
It's not something that was done by an outside entity. So we would have to contract with a company that does that. They would come in and they would inventory everything, and it would probably,
But it's not a one-time thing. It's a yearly.
well,
Or
if
set aside.
you're gonna have your financials audited every year, then yeah, you'd have to have it done pretty
That's what I'm saying, it's not,
regularly.
yeah, if that's the basic, if that's the bottom negative reaction,
So
and to get that wiped out.
20 years ago, it probably would have cost us $10,000. Now it would probably cost us upwards of $30,000 to have somebody come in and do that. It's a lot of work.
Okay, so then the second question is, those two adverse opinions, do they mean anything? Like, they don't prevent
All
us
they-
from getting
all
federal
they
funding,
mean-
state funding?
No, because as long as we have a
Last
clean,
morning, this opinion was
Yeah.
jeopardizing us.
Okay,
We're
no,
fighting
yeah,
back.
and this is where I would feel comfortable having the auditors answer these questions for you, but based on my discussion and my somewhat knowledge, because I used to do this before I started working for the town, so I'm out of practice on that stuff. But what they told me was that so the whole reason we had the audit to start with was what we call a single audit, to have our federal aid audited.
All our grants.
That is what we need to have a good opinion on in order to continue to receive federal aid for the airport, essentially.
Right.
All right.
Because the road is state.
Right, see, so in past years, they've been able to do it as a program-specific audit and only look at the aid that was expended if it was in more than $750,000 in a year. But because we have ARPA funds, and those are federal funds, and we spent those, they could not do that for 2022. So they had to do a full audit of our financials. And because they did the full audit, we get the adverse opinion on the full financial statements because of not having an outside actuary and an outside independent firm to
So this,
categorize our
so this
fixed assets.
basically, until the ARPA funds are spent and we're done, every year, we're just gonna see the same thing.
Probably, because our airport grants are, this year and next year, we're probably between having the apron rehab, the apron done, and then the runway rehab, you know,
Right.
they're
So,
big
but
expenses.
once ARPA fund situation is done, that vessel will go away.
Yeah, but next year we're gonna have to pay to have a full audit again.
Yeah, but I'm
Right.
saying, but.
So
there will
if
be
you
ARPA funds.
if you want a clean opinion, then you need to spend, in addition to the $45,000 or $50,000 for the audit,
But
you have to
like
spend
there's
another
overall, it's
30,000
not-
for,
But it's overall, it's not detrimental.
it's
to
not
anything.
detrimental, no.
The one negative aspect I expected,
Hmm.
so I jumped out in front and I explained our Orta situation with
Oh, the
both
contract.
auditors, because I didn't want them to see $325,000 with 175 still coming.
Yeah,
So I told them, I said, if you two fellows would like to tackle the state of New York on my behalf, then write me a sentence. Otherwise, I'd suggest you leave it alone.
yeah.
They agreed.
You know, I mean, the state didn't care about it because obviously it's one of their authorities, so, you know, they're not gonna,
Yeah.
whatever. So anyway, that's the audit, and I have, still working on getting you guys updated financials for this year. Tomorrow, I promise, I'll get them to you tomorrow. I'm almost there. But in the meantime, we have our personnel actions and the budget amendments. So I already spoke to Derek. I'm probably not going to be on Wednesday's board meeting next week. I'll try, but I don't know. And I will email these all to you, but this is the only, I closed all the batches
Good.
today. So anything that comes in the mail that needs to get paid isn't going to get paid until next month.
Did you cut checks for Frey well drilling, right?
They're in for you guys
Because
to
I signed
approve.
the voucher. Okay.
Yeah, they're in for you to get
Okay.
approved. That lady who contacted me about the money that you had set aside out of ARPA for them for trail something or other, Trail Alliance, something, I don't know.
Not Beta?
Not Beta, it wasn't Beta.
Well,
You
there's a
went back,
railroad.
you said, please show me your fundraising and then we'll give you money.
no,
Well,
the out, not
I know, I
outfitters.
can't think of
It's the club that brings the kids to.
Oh, it wasn't out of.
She-
Club.
Oh, okay.
She hasn't sent me anything. Did she send you anything? Then they're not in for payment, so that's, if she says, how come we didn't get a check? That's why.
Okay.
So anyway, the only thing we need for budget amendments is for
Parents.
community beautification, you know?
Yeah.
And this is basically related to her doing the additional work for the entities that she gets up on Main Street and whatever, and we have more than enough revenue. I mean, so far this year, we've booked 25,000, but I think I have, she gave me 2 checks just this past week that haven't been booked yet. So when I get that information from Lori, I'll get that in too. So there's more than enough money revenue-wise to cover her additional expense. And then, so personnel. So we have a lot of new hires. As you heard Chelsea, we have the lifeguards and the counselors. So when you see on this list, counselor in training, it's not the same terminology that Chelsea's using, okay? This is what Essex County makes me use. But Anessa is the one that she was referring to as the CIT, who has had prior camp experience. But they're all getting hired at $15.50 an hour. That's the starting rate. I think, I'll have to double check with her. If any of these new hires have RTE, then they're gonna get additional. And if that's the case, then I'll make a note on here when I send it to you for the board meeting, okay? Terry's are, I'm calling them a safety monitor for the lake instead of lake patrol, just because he's not, you know, it's like Emily said, it's more of an education on, oh, did you know you're not supposed to do this?
Good.
Kind of thing, right? Emily is the individual that they want to hire for the transfer station. $17.25 is the starting rate for that position. So then we have Doug Doty and Wayne, who I'm assuming Wayne is who when we were talking, you had mentioned Gordon Kelly.
Hold on, just one, hold on, Kathy, hold on one second.
Huh.
Is that what we agreed upon, 17?
17 and a quarter is a union.
Yeah, it's the union.
That's the union start rate. So
What higher?
no prior experience. We're not giving her any prior experience because she hasn't actually, from what we saw in her application, no actual customer service as a front person for, like a salesperson,
So we had a
like
lot
a
of,
clerk.
through Big Slide and
But she-
other.
But in her,
But I mean,
okay,
I
so
Big Slide, a couple.
we
other
talked
things.
about this and,
Yeah, 'cause
But we
we-
should be careful in general session here about.
well, we didn't, I'm done with anything else.
Right.
So if you want to go to
Yeah,
executive,
I
we
think
can.
we need
Uh,
to. if we
Why
need
don't
to.
we do that?
Yeah. if we need
Uh,
to, Yeah.
All right, at this point, I'm gonna ask for a motion to go into executive session.
For personnel matters, so.
Jason, second. Dick?
Yep.
All in favor? Aye. No one opposed? Carried. Thank you.
So